Of today's broadcast here on GlacierTV. This is the 2013 Racing.com Pocono 400 presented by GlacierTV. We'll be with you now for the next 160 laps around the track that they like to call the Tricky Triangle. And after making the transition from the Racing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, where Hugo Louise scored back-to-back victories, now Matt Cook is looking to score back-to-back victories in this World Tour event. Wil Vincent along with Jamie McClusker and Rob Cuss for this broadcast, and these guys, as I say, will be racing for 160 laps, Jeremy. The track they call the Tricky Triangle really is just that tricky.
Yeah, it earned that name for a reason, Will. This is such a tough track. It's got so much character to it. Every turn is different, and the driver who wins this race today will be the one who's able to get through those corners the best through 160 laps.
Pocono is unique because of the way the track is configured. While most ovals are, tri-ovals, kind of rounded ovals, so to say, this is a triangle, as I think you kind of figured out by now. Turn number 1, 14 degrees of banking, the most steep corner on the racetrack. But because of the radii of the corner, actually it feels a lot steeper than that. Turn number 2, 8 degrees, and turn 3 is 6 degrees. Now, this track was opened, many years ago, 1971, recently repaved, and just 1 week ago, saw the Eyes on IndyCar series return to this racetrack for the first time in over 20 years. And Rob, this is a very, very difficult racetrack, and the qualifying times alone show just how tough that is.
Yeah, having tried to do this myself, it is really tough to drive. I was going to live stream. I've had a few issues, sadly, which is not enabling me to do that. But the qualifying is crazy. The top four, Jarno, Matt Cook, Martin Miller, and Randy Crosno, they're gone. See how they did that is beyond me. They're brilliant. But it gets really close after that. I mean, if you look at the last, from 10th to 30th, there's not much in it. It's one mistake. The bunts on turn 1, on the inside of turn 1, can cause that. If you don't get the right run out of 1 and 3, you're stuffed. Turn 2's where you can relax pretty much. But 1 and 3 are so tough to get right.
Don't forget, you can keep in contact with us all race long on Twitter. Use the hashtag iRacingWT, alternatively iRacingIndy. We are here at Pocono Raceway, and Young O scoring pole position. Now, qualifying has been a little bit different to what you're used to. It runs more of the Indianapolis style qualifying, where it's the average of your 4 timed laps which determines your overall qualifying time. And Young O, the only guy to break the sub 41.1 bracket. He did a 4-lap average of 41.097. Once again, Jeremy, proving that he is one of, if not the best current IndyCar driver in the series.
Without a doubt. I think Jarno, when everyone looks at him, they see him as, one of the definite threats to win. And this track is so tough. It is so much different than Indianapolis, where we were a month and a half ago for the Indy 500. And something these viewers may not know is that each of these turns here is actually modeled after a track. You got turn 1, which is Trenton Speedway, turn 2, which actually is Indy, then you got turn 3, which is the Milwaukee Mile. And it is so hard to nail it right here, especially for 4 laps. So props to Yang for getting that done, because that's impressive.
Matt Cook, of course, he won the race yesterday. He set a 4-lap average of 41.125. Ahead of his close rival yet teammate Martin Miller, a full half a tenth faster than Randy Crosno in the 4th position. He was the only other guy to get below the sub 41.2 bracket. You have to say though, Tim Doyle in that 5th position, we know that Tim Doyle isn't necessarily the best qualifier, Jeremy, but he sure as hell is one of the best racers, and he'll be looking to get past Crosno, Miller and Cook very quickly so he can team up with his Team Lap Racing teammate Young O and try and pull away.
Right, qualifying is completely different from the race. He may have just had a little hiccup in qualifying, and if he didn't, who knows, he may have been up there with Yang, but once it comes to the race, things will be completely different, and I'd expect him to be contending for this win if he's around at the end.
Then you have a look a little bit further down the field. 6th position, Brendan Lichtenberg. He did a 31.342. Then James went back, the only Australian in the field. He did a time of 41.365. Randy Freeman in 8th, 41.373. Miguel Angel Martinez, 41.393. Then Gorg Newdrop rounds out the top 10, a 41.410. What you see, Rob, is even between teams and teammates, and there's been so much debate, you know, on how important setups are in the IndyCar, and how, you know, sometimes driver skill is a little bit less. As Young actually just hits the wall there coming out of turn number 2 in the practice.
Yeah, I
You
was
better
just
not
watching
do that
that
in the race.
You know, I can attest to that.
Go on.
I was going to say, right, all this IndyCar is set up debate is pretty rubbish, actually. Yes, it helps if you've got a good setup. Yes, it will get you the extra little bit. But my qualifying times with a set versus the fixed set, which is available to everyone, I did 2 sets, and one was I was what, a tenth slower with the fixed set. All right, I didn't have a great set, but the driver can make up for it. And anyone that says Yango, Matt Cook, any of those in up to what 7 P7 P8, oh, it's just their setup that's brilliant. Go race fixed and watch Matt Cook demolish you in that as well when everything's on an even keel, because all these boys are brilliant. I mean, I raced against them in the Indy 500, and they were loony. Some of the passes they do, and the skill you have to race at this speed for this long in a pack. It's crazy.
The keys to this race, the biggest key is going to be momentum, keeping your speed all the way around the racetrack through turn number 1, which at the start of the run you're gonna have to lift. As the run progresses, and we'll show you some onboards throughout the race, and you'll notice that as the run progresses and a fuel tank runs about 34 to 36 laps here, you can actually start flat-footing turn number 1. Turn 2 is going to be flat out. Turn 3, you're probably not going to be flat out at all in a run, unless you're running in clean air in the last 3 or 4 laps, in which case if you really need to get the extra tenth of a second, then you can try and push it, but there's a huge risk to reward factor for doing so. And also, we've talked about this, Rob, pit in is incredibly difficult, both pit in and pit out, because pit in, you know, you haven't really got much room. That apron, the turning radius of the apron, and the fact there's no banking there at all, means it's very difficult to use the apron. If you pit off turn 3 of the actual racetrack itself, like all of these guys are going to do, you've got to find a way of holding that car to the inside line, and then braking very quickly to get it to 55 miles an hour without locking up a brake.
It is so tricky. I was trying to do it in practice earlier this week, and you come off 3 and you're coming off it, even if you let off the throttle and you just cruise in and you think, oh, I'm slowing down enough, you know, but you have to be on the brakes. It's just hard. I mean, I was dialing in a lot of front brake bias to slow me down a little bit more, probably a little bit too much sometimes, and losing the front, but it's going to be tricky. Exit is tough as well. I've been in a lot of practice servers with Mark Chorley, who's in this, and we've been finding people coming out of the pits and weaving all across the racetrack. It's like, if you come out of the pits, hold the inside line and just let us try and get round you. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be critical to where these guys come out in traffic, because it can take one mistake from one, you know, from someone maybe a little bit further down that could ruin a potential battle for the lead later on in the race. So that's going to be really tricky for the top guys to manage.
Pit exit, you talk about it, you know, hold that inside line. You've got, I mean, it can be very slippery down there, especially on the outlap with the bumps. In fact, you're not going at full pace. You really want to make sure the cars on the outside don't go past you, but you are a bit of a sitting duck. And also, you know, this is not a wide racetrack in many respects. The racing groove is only about a groove and a half, 2 grooves at best. And what that means is you've got to be incredibly patient with the way that you time and execute your pass, Jeremy. Because if you do it, you know, too aggressive too early, you can overheat those tyres, you'll be struggling for the rest of the run. And if you don't line up your passes properly, especially if you're in traffic, you could brush up high and then someone else could just slip down the inside of you before you know it.
Right, and if you lose all those spots, you're in deep trouble, because this is such a tough place to pass. But you also, in that same respect, do have to be aggressive, because you have to get track position, because this is one of those places where a long green flag run is very likely, and draft is very dependent here. And I'd expect, I never watched the race last night, but I'd expect to see, you know, a front-running pack all just drafting with each other, and, you know, maybe 2 or 3 other packs throughout the race, you know, just kind of separating themselves from the rest of the field.
And negotiating that car in traffic, Rob, you know, it kind of spreads the field out a little bit more than at some other places, because it's very easy for that car to be incredibly tight in both turn 1 and turn 3 if you don't use those in-car tools. But we've seen, you know, the field spread out a little bit, but then come back together over the course of the run. That was, I think, one of the key things for me yesterday, is that, you know, a lot of people have been taking it very respectful in restarts. They're not worried necessarily about gaining or losing too many positions. But at the same time, they just want to make sure that they can then, when they get into traffic, find a way of negotiating that car around the racetrack.
And it's really easy to lose your front end around here as well, and through the, you know, the dirty air. I found that out to a cost. I'm sure you did as well. If you catch 2 cars and they're sort of making that bit of dirty air wider, it makes your life so much more difficult, and you're tweaking your in-car tools to try and combat that. And it's all about, you know, it's race management, as you keep telling me when you're trying to coach me on my IndyCar racing. You've got to use those tools, because if you're not, you might as well not bother.
Checkered flag is out, so practice is over, and now the field is going to be heading itself down to the grid. A total of 30 cars making the trip to Long Pond in Pennsylvania to Pocono Raceway for the iRacing World Tour Pocono 400, presented by GlacierTV. Row number 1 will be Young O and Matt Cook. Young O qualifying time 4-lap average of 41.097. Matt Cook alongside him 41.125. Row number 2, Martin Miller, Randy Crosno. Row number 3, Tim Doyle and Brandon Litchberg. Row number 4, James Swinbanks and Randy Freeman. Row number 5, Miguel Angel Martinez and Gorg Nudrox. Row number 6, Hal Pino and Dano Brookins. Row number 7 will be Eric Davis and Sam Bonset. Row 8, Gary Borgenhagen and Randy Shoemake. Row number 9, Jeffrey Erkenbach and Laura Costa. And then row 10, James Allard and Mark Shorley. The rest of the qualifying results coming up on your screen momentarily. Jeremy, who's going to win?
Gosh, it's so hard to pick a winner, but you got to believe Yang O is the favorite coming in. I mean, he put down a well of a qualifying lap. He's always typically the top 3 of the fastest cars that come into these IndyCar races. He had a very fast car at Indy. He got gypped on that one, but I wouldn't be surprised to say Yang would win.
Who's going to win, Rob?
Oh, the Cookie Monster. I'm going to go with someone that's been helping me out a little bit and much appreciated. But I think he's going to have a solid race pace. So he'll be singing from last night as well. So I'm going to go for Matt.
Matt Cook, Young O, Tim Dahl, Martin Miller, all guys who has a chance of winning today. Right now, you see the cars, they're working themselves through turn number 1, and there's bumps there, Rob. You've got to be careful over those bumps, because it's right on the second groove. You hit them, you're going to bruise up the racetrack.
Exactly. And if you can't do much about it, because your car's going, it's like skating, it's weird. It's a weird feeling on your wheel, but yeah, you've got to stay away from those, but it's going to be good. Definitely, this is going to be cool. I hate you, BT, by the way. Just, I should be racing.
Don't forget, live timing is available if you head over to isowc.org/live, presented by our friends over at the ISOWC IndyCar Series. Cars currently working themselves behind the pace car into turn number 2. This is the tunnel turn, banked at 8 degrees. Very similar to that of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Then they'll come down the shortest of the 3 straightaways down into turn number 3. Modelled on the Milwaukee Mile. Just 6 degrees of banking. And this is where you really will see the guys who have got their cars, their setups, their in-car tools working perfectly to perfection. Young O starting this race on the inside of row number 1. Have Matt Cook alongside him. The green flag comes out very quickly here at Pocono. The pace car is going to make that turn down towards pit road. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2013 iRacing.com Pocono 400. Green flag in the air. We are racing for 160 laps. It's been a blinding start by Young O. Matt Cook falls into second position. position. No, he doesn't, because Martin Miller's going to go down his inside, and Miller will take second position away down into turn number 1. Cook will fall into line. Krosno in 4th. Tim Doyle in the 5th position. James Winbanks in 6th. Brandon Lynchburg 7th. Angel Martinez in 8th. Hal Pino in 9th. And Randy Freeman rounds out your top 10. It looks as though everyone is through turn number 1 for the first time, but they are going to be 3 wide as they come down into turn number 2. Watch out, Daniel Kendall on the inside of Laura Costa. It looks like he was able to get that job done perfectly, but they're still 2 wide into turn number 3. James Allard and Mark Shorty running side by side for the time being. Shirley on the outside is going to get that job done on the outside line, so he will keep it. And it looks like everyone has been able to complete lap number 1 without too many issues, except for Jacob Schneider, who right now is pretty slow on the racetrack, scored 30th and in the last position. But what a getaway for Young O, Jeremy.
Yeah, but I wouldn't expect that to last long. The draft is really strong here, and he's got 4 guys in a line right behind him. And while doing that, they'll catch up on him really quick. I don't know if they'll pass him. They may try to save a little fuel by just riding behind him, but they'll hunt him down in a hurry.
Yeah, so it's Banshee Motorsport cars that are working all together, aren't they? So they're going to be, I think, fuel saving right now.
I don't think they'll be necessarily fuel saving just yet. Of course, it's a very long race. It's 4.4 pit stop these guys will need. The fuel number is 0.608 gallons per lap. You can stretch that out to make that about as low as 0.595 gallons per lap. But meanwhile, we're going to keep it right now with your race leaders. Young O, at the end of lap number 2, had a 2/3 of a second gap over Martin Miller. Matt Cook's falling right in behind him in that 3rd position. Randy Cosno right there as well. But Tim Doyle, he is looking racy early on. In fact, he's now going to look perhaps down to the inside of Randy Cosno as they come down into turn number 1. And you have to say that he should have been able to pull out there and try to make the pass. Tim Doyle taking it very easy early on in the going, Jeremy.
Well, right now these front runners especially, they just wanna get in a nice rhythm and get some laps under their belt. I wouldn't expect too many crazy moves from them. Maybe a little bit of the back markers a little bit, if you even want to call them that. But right now, just get some laps under your belt. Don't push things. Don't get yourself in a wreck, because you really need to be around for the end.
So working ourselves now on lap number 4. The top 5 had pulled away a little bit. James Swingbanks is trying to close up to the rear of them. He is pulling away as well, actually, from Miguel Angel Martinez. And the top 10, they're starting to get a little bit more spread out, as it looks like Hal Pino's lost a position there to Randy Freeman. So he is now down into the 9th position on the racetrack.
We've got trouble. We have trouble. We've got a car on the wall in turn 2, I think.
Turn 1, turn 2.
Turn 1, sorry.
Yeah, we'll have a look to see who that is at the moment. In fact, it looks like Eric Davis. Yeah, the Banshee Autosport driver of Eric Davis, the first retiree of the day. And that all started when he ran into the rear of Dano Brookins in the P1 racing car, and it just turned Eric Davis around. Brookins was trying to run that outside line to get himself around the slow traffic of Ron Mia Jr. Of course, the only car scored not on the lead lap. Mia just come out of pit road, so he was holding the inside line like he was supposed to. Brookins was on the outside line, and it just looked as though that Brookins had to check up a little bit to avoid hitting the wall, and Eric Davis just tagged him from the rear, and it is game over for the number 11 car there of Eric Davis.
Yeah, that'd be disappointment for him for sure, especially this early on.
I just want to point out, right before that caution, I was watching the top 5, and exiting turn 1, I believe I saw Randy Crosno get into the outside wall a little bit on corner exit. Tim Doyle actually got by him, but I'll be interested to see if that car is hurt at all. I believe that the right side of the wing plate on that front wing is gone, though.
We'll have a look. We'll try and get word from the Banshee Autosport guys in just a couple of moments. There is the slightest of damage, actually, to the end plate there of Randy Crosno's number 7 Aero X racing machine. Crosno had a bad race yesterday. He was out pretty much early on. He was set by his records for about a top 5 finish, definitely top 5. He was hoping for top 3, and right now he could be in a little bit of trouble, as we are under our first caution of the day. Young O in the number 4 car about to catch up to the rear of the pace car, And Jeremy, we're at that stage of the race. We're only 6 laps in that Tim Don and Young O might try and do something crazy and decide to pit early.
Gosh, I really don't know. Pit strategy has never been my thing. If it was me, though, I think it's a little too early to come in and pit, because being in the back is dangerous here, and I really think track position is crucial. But I've been wrong before, and I won't be surprised to be wrong again.
We're just going to have a look down the field, and it looks as though no one... Yeah, we have our first take, a Gorg Nudrox from the 12th position coming onto pit road. No one else for the time being is going to make that journey. Because the rear of the field actually hasn't fully caught up to the pace car, Gorg might not actually fall to the rear. In fact, Herman Fander is going to come onto pit road as well. So it looks like the Vortex Racing guys are doing a little bit of an alternative strategy early on. Ryan Lowe comes onto pit road, as does the good old boys driver of Daniel Kendall. Michael Chin is onto pit road.
Ryan Lowe's got rear wing damage, I think, so he's just checking it out with his pit crew. He's typing in chat, so we will...
G. Ivanioff also on pit road. Julian Pham, Jacob Schneider, he almost spun his car on pit road, actually, at a very weird angle. So, Gorg Nudrox is the first driver to pit, and I say he was running in the 12th position at that moment in time. And it's very interesting the way the pit strategy can work. I mean, if it was to go green from now and you was to save it, you could make it to the end. But we had 6 cautions yesterday in the race. We expect somewhere between about 5 and 10 cautions in this race. And it's always about the timing of those cautions, Jeremy, because if you get it timed wrong, you're not going to lose a lap here at Pocono. You can come in, make a full pit stop, come back out, and just stay on the lead lap, a bit like Indy. However, you're going to lose a lot of track position if you're caught out by the cautions, and it's very tough to pass here if your car's not working properly.
Well, right, but you also got to remember that if you're one of the first guys to pit and you are, you know, in the, well, I guess anywhere in the pack, but you're not too far behind the leader, and a caution comes out as you're on pit road while green flags, while stops are coming up, everyone else is going to have to pit. Well, you already made your pit stop, so when they all hit the pits under the caution, you'll just be able to drive right by them and hopefully get in the lead.
Is your dog enjoying his squeaky toy, Jeremy?
Oh, yeah, she is.
Cool.
We've had word from Banshee Autosport pit crew, and Randy Crosno doesn't have any damage. I went over to the AeroX guys, and no damage at all to Randy Crosno's car, so it looks like he will be good to go in that number 7 AeroX Coors Light racing car. One of the features of this race, which is different from what the Eisen IndyCar Series guys are used to, single file restarts. Therefore, the rules are very simple. You will line up in the order that you were when the caution came out, of course, unless you came onto pit road. The lap cars do not get sent to the rear of the field until there are less than 10 laps to go. And on the restart, you cannot pass on the inside. However, as soon as the green flag comes out, you can pass on the outside. So what that means, Jeremy, is pretty much everyone, you'll see it, is going to start running that outside wall from probably the exit of turn 2, just to make sure that they don't get, you know, freight trained once the race goes back to green.
Pretty much. You don't want to lose any spots on this restart. Excuse my dog, by the way, but although if you do get passed on the outside, it may not be such a bad thing because you will have the inside line going into turn 1, assuming that car doesn't clear you, so you may still have the advantage, although you just don't want to take any risks and let anyone, you know, give up any easy track position on a restart, which could have been avoided.
And some of the cars at the rear of the field will actually still be working themselves through turn number 3 when the green flag comes out. So they've got to be very careful when they get on that power that they don't inadvertently go to the inside line and pass a car before they get past the start finish. As soon as you pass start finish line, pass anyone you want on the inside. So you'll see a lot of jockeying for position as the first caution of the day completes in the iRacing.com Pocono 400. Young O is your race leader, Martin Miller second, Matt Cook third, Tim Doyle fourth, Randy Crosno in fifth, James Winchbanks in sixth, Miguel Angel Martinez in seventh, Brandon Litchberg in eighth, Randy Freeman in ninth, and Hal Pinot rounds out your top 10. Gonna stick it with your race leader for this restart, Young O. Let's see when he gets going. It will be any moment now. And we're going to be back to green flag racing here in the Pocono 400. Good start by Young. A good start there by Matt Cook as well. and they're all kind of falling into line. Crossley didn't have as good a start there, and that is going to allow Swimbanks to be right behind them as they work themselves back down into turn number 1 once again. And once again, those top 6 drivers are putting away from Miguel Angel Martinez, but everyone once again cleanly through turn number 1 and 2. And you have right now Jeffrey Alkenbach, who has got down to his inside Gary Borkenhagen in the broken aero car. He's just going to breeze past him down into turn number 2, Jeremy.
It looked to me like a couple guys on that restart tried to time it a little too well, and almost as soon as Young O went and the rest of the field started going, had to jump out of the throttle because there was a huge stack up in the back, which really got them going off to a slow start. And now the top 5, 6, or 7, you know, basically broken away from the rest of the field.
Borkenhagen wasn't able to complete that pass in turn number 3, and what that did is it allowed Jeffrey Arkenbach to get back into the 12th position of the racetrack. So Borkenhagen's car not working too well on that inside line, but the field now single file for the time being, and once again we have that breakaway. I tell you what, it does look as though Crosno is struggling right now in that number 7 Aero X racing car. He has got his teammate James Swingbanks behind him in the 23 car, but already they are 1.8 seconds behind the lead group, Rob, and there might actually be a little bit of damage to Randy Cosmo's car because he's not doing the type of lap times that you would expect him to be doing at this stage of the race.
No, Randy's super fast and consistent, and he looks a few tenths down on what he should be doing, and James has caught him up no problem. I don't expect it to be too long before Randy lets him by and says, go see if you can catch the back end of this little 3-pack that they've got going on.
So O is leading still from Miller in 2nd position, Matt Cook in 3rd. And you notice a different line actually there between James Swinbanks in that 23 car and Cosno through turn number 2. And that all comes down to the setup and the way that these guys work their tools throughout the race as well. But let's have a little bit of a look further down the field, because you still have a very interesting battle between Randy Freeman and Brandon Lichtenberg. They are 8th and 9th on the racetrack. They are the number 9 and 10 cars. And Randy Freeman's going to look down to the inside into turn number 1. He's going to try at the very least complete that pass. He will just about get clear, and he will complete that pass there. And he now is up into the 8th position on the racetrack, but Lichtenberg looking strong. And I think that draft might mean he may need to get back past in turn 1 next time.
I'm looking at Yao behind them, caught them up quite a lot. Yao Pino. His car looks mighty racy in a straight line behind them, so it just doesn't look to have quite the corner speed the other two have, though, which is a bit, so obviously different setups or different usage of tools going on there.
So, working ourselves now on lap number 13. We're at less than 10% into this race, but the action is still intense. We saw Dano Brookins was involved in an incident early on into this race, Jeffrey. And that 8 car is struggling a little bit. He's got Gary Borkenhagen all over the rear of him. In fact, Borkenhagen did lose that position to Dano Brookins a couple of laps ago. I believe that was when he was battling with Jeffrey Arkenbach. But Brookins, he looks like he might just be suffering a little bit there from the contact he had with Eric Davis a little bit earlier.
Well, right now he's still in a decent running position. I'd just expect him to, you know, just try to hold his position right now and, you know, just get some laps under his belt.
Swinbanks is past Randy Crosno as well and pulling away.
So he's moved himself up now into the top 5. Randy Crosno down into the 6th position. And this will be interesting now to see whether Crosno can at least hang on the rear of that number 23 Aero X racing car. In fact, it does look as though he's doing so for the time being. They picked up the speed a little bit as well, actually. But James Swingbanks is now 1.8 seconds behind Tim Doyle, who runs in the 4th position. Still, though, it doesn't look as though Tim Doyle is attempting to really make any moves on Matt Cook and Martin Miller. He does seem content to carry on running in that 4th position for the time being. Perhaps, Jeremy, he is just saving a little bit of fuel early on in this race, hoping he can get an extra lap over these guys. And we know how good Tim Doyle can be on pit road.
Well, yeah, and this is such a big track, you know, it's 2.5 miles to where saving 1 lap of fuel could mean the race at the end of this thing.
And Leroy Costos brought his car onto pit road. He had a great race yesterday. He finished in about the 4th position. Looks as though he's had an incident in this race, however, and that he got rear-ended actually by Jacob Schneider by the looks of it, and it's put him out of the race. And they were all kind of you know, jostling for position down into turn 3. Costa had to get out of the gas because there were 2 wide ahead of him slow, and just got run over by Jacob Schneider. That has put Laura Costa at least 1 lap down, and it does look as though he's going to try and get some repairs to that Club Brazil machine, but he is now pretty much scored as the last car who is running all the way down in the 28th position on the racetrack. Meanwhile, Youngo has started to pull away. He now has an 0.8 of a second gap over Martin Miller, who in turn has a couple of tenths of a second gap over Matt Cook. This is about for the first 3 positions on the racetrack. And Rob, we expected Youngo to be able to try and pull away. He's doing just that. That last lap alone, he was able to take a 1/10 of a second almost, pulling away over Martin Miller.
He is a robot. He's a machine in the IndyCar. I've never seen anything like it. I've had the luxury of Matt Cook and that helping me out and being, you know, giving me tips and stuff. And those boys are fast. So for him to do this, it's just, that's amazing. He's on a different planet.
And we all know that Jarno is one of the best drivers to step into IndyCar. Let's not forget, he is won the Racing.com Indianapolis 500. He won that last year. He was the 2011 Iceland IndyCar Premier Series champion. He absolutely dominated that. He dominated the 16th Street Racing League. He is that guy to beat. Arguably, there's only a couple of other people in the history of IndyCar who's been on the same level. You have to look to likes of John Paquin, to PJ Sturgis, to Alexia Loma, to Ron Black, to have any chance of getting anywhere close to him. And also to his teammate in that #1 machine, that is Tim Doyle. But I think that right now, both Miller and Cook are struggling for a little bit of pace. And I know that their setup really does kick into gear when they get to about 11 gallons left on the fuel tank. So we're still about a couple of laps away from when that happens. As soon as that happens, expect them to start picking up the pace. Last time, a 41.592 for Martin Miller, a 41.478, however, for Young O in that 4 car. He took out another 1/10 of a second. That gap for the first time in this race is up to over 1 second on the racetrack. I'm going to bring Mitch McCracken into the conversation here. Once again, Young O simply is dominating, Mitch.
Yeah, he seems to be pretty good at that these days. If he wants to win, he'll do it. He'll find a way. Not only is he a good driver, but he's a good setup man as well. So he has it all put together.
And right now, Jeffrey, this is that stage of the race where you've burnt off about half of that fuel, and you are having to use a lot of those tools in the car to keep that car not only balanced on the racetrack, but as the fuel burns off, the speed increases as well. And with the more speed, there's a chance that you can possibly get a little bit looser into the corners, as Martin Miller takes a lot of that curb there in turn #1. That cost him alone about a 1/10 of a second, and now means that Matt Cook's going to look down to his inside in the battle for the 2nd position, and he will complete that pass before they get down into turn #2.
It was a nice, solid move. Obviously, I would have thought they're communicating, so it was like, all right, you can go out front for a bit. It was a bit of a odd mistake by Martin. He just seemed to turn in a little bit too early, and it's allowed Tim Doyle right up on their back door.
Yeah, and they had pulled away about a 3/10 of a second gap up to that point. They now are pretty much lining line of stern once again. Going to take it back down the field just a little bit. Going to turn our attention actually to the battle right now between Jeffrey Arkenbrandt and Danny Brookins. This is for 11th and 12th positions on the racetrack. They have Sam Bonzet behind them, and Gary Borgenhagen trying to close up to this battle as well. Now, Borgenhagen was very good at the start of the run, Jeremy, but it does look as though he has fallen away just a little bit, and he's struggling to keep onto the rear of this 3-car train.
Yeah, I don't know specifically what his issue is right now. You know, but it's still a super long race left. You got 140 laps, 350 miles, and you know, you got 3 or 4 pit stops coming up. So you got, I don't want to say you got a while, but you got time to make your car better and figure out what's wrong.
And one of the ways of doing it, of course, we talk about the in-car tools. All of these drivers, they have the anti-roll bars front and rear. You can move the front anti-roll bar. If you increase it, you can make the car tighter on the front end, which means that you stop the car from rotating at the front. The rear anti-roll bar, what you can do with that is you can actually make the rear of the car rotate a little bit more by increasing it. You set the preloads at the start of the race, and basically you just increase it or decrease it over the course of a run. and none of these drivers are using the ARBs more than their weight jacket here. I've talked to a lot of drivers, and they're saying that the weight jacket alone does seem to use the tyres up a lot more, heat up those right-hand side tyres. You can actually increase or decrease the weight jacket to kind of make that car looser or tighter. If you increase the weight jacket, you raise the right rear of the car up into the air, which makes that car a little bit looser. If you lower the weight jacket, you make that car a little bit tighter. And these guys will be using that all of the way through the run to try and get themselves the best position they can, lap after lap. In fact, Gary Borkenhagen, in that last lap alone, they need to close up about 2.5 car lengths over Sam Bonset as they work themselves back down into turn number 3. The battle continues from about 11th position on the racetrack down to about 14th. And what this is doing is it's actually allowing Tim Mawson to start closing up. The gap right now about 1.4 seconds on the racetrack. Mawson about a tenth of a second faster than the guys ahead of him. And Rob, this is what I was talking about at the start of this race. The field will separate, but then it will come back together as the run progresses, because some guys who's good at the start of the run might not be good a little bit later on.
Exactly, and it's a long race as well. So you get people that might not have they might have a really quick setup in the first few laps, and then they're battling it for the rest of the run. And you've got the people that would, like me, I tend to take it easy on the start of a run and not hoon my car around too much. And then as the fuel gets lighter, my car starts performing a lot better. And that's the way I run a stint. I go easy to hard rather than the other way around. And you see that, as you said, you get the people that go out hard and you get the people that sort of go out easy, and by the time the pit stops come around, they'll all be together as someone's making to look and make a move down the back straight by the looks of it.
Yeah, that was Gary Borkenhagen, who tried putting his car down to the inside of Sam Bonset, wasn't able to do so, so they continued to run single file for the time being. Behind, Tim Mawson has Randy Shoemake right behind him, and in fact also James Allard coming to play here right now, so another 3-car train. And as I said, they are all catching Gary Borkenhagen and that pack ahead. And that gap right now about 1.2 seconds on the racetrack, so it's coming down
as there's a
at the rate
pass
of
to
about
the
10
inside.
seconds a lap. And that is Sam Bonset.
Dano
Brookins, yeah, Sam Bonset's been just past Dano Brookins. So Bonset there in that Sunday Thunder car, being able to get past Dano Brookins in the P1 racing car. Brookins is going backwards. He had a tough race yesterday. He hit the wall on the exit of turn number 1 very early on into the race, and it looks like he is struggling for power once again in that P1 racing car.
Back to the front for anyone that's interested. Yango's got a 2-second lead. Ciao. See you later, boys. Try and catch me if you can.
The important thing there is Jarno was able to break that draft in the first half of the run. Right now, you see Martin Miller and Matt Cook, they've been able to pick up the pace. And now doing 41.3s and 41.4s compared to the 41.5s they're doing a little bit earlier on. But out front, without a draft, is doing lap times what? 41.330 that last turn by. They're working themselves down into turn number 3 once again on the racetrack. In fact, we'll try and go on board with Young O as he comes to work onto lap number 28. We'll get an idea of the lap times as well here, because this could be interesting. Young O comes past the stripe, a 41.330 for him last time by. Matt Cook, a 41.374. So he's still losing half a tenth of a second a lap there, Jeremy.
I just want to bring up that Yang the last 2 laps, has ran the exact same lap time. And that is what you call consistency, especially around this place where the driver plays such a huge role into it. And he is setting sail from these guys right now.
Yeah, Young really is turning up the wick as we're working ourselves on lap 28 of 160. We're only about 10 laps away from green flag pit stops. And when you consider the run that there is, right, as Young just does a 41.279, he really is kicking it into higher gear now. The guys that pitted under that first caution, people like Herman Founder and Gorg Newjox, they currently scored 21st and 19th respectively on the racetrack, Rob. If there is a caution between the time that Young O comes onto pit road and Gorg Newjox and Herman Founder come onto pit road, then they could, in theory, for the short term at least, make up quite a few positions.
Yeah, they could. I mean, that little early dip into the pits is quite handy for the guys at the back, the slower guys like Mark and Brian and George and all that. They're a little bit slower, so you got they try and play the strategy game a bit more to make their passes. That was close through turn 2 between Mark Chorley. I don't know. It was actually Herman Fander, I think.
Yeah, and
got very close.
Struggling quite now. in that number 21 machine, running in the 21st position. And Gorg Nudrox has fallen back a position as well. He's been passed by Brian McEntee. In fact, Brian did a good job yesterday in the race. Now he's running in the 19th position on the racetrack. We've been green now for about 20 laps, so for Gorg and that, they need to hope this kind of plays out over the longer run to really get maximum advantage out of it. One person who doesn't want a caution, however, is Young O. He is now going faster than ever. 41.240 that last time by for the number 4 car of Young O. He's on another planet, simply put.
He's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. You can stop, have an ice cream, you know, grab a newspaper, have a little read, and then, yeah, go again. I've seen a lot of IndyCar races, and I like watching IndyCar, I like watching you guys and stuff race, but this guy's unreal. I mean, the only time I've raced against him was Indy 500, and he got unlucky in that. He got taken, he had an accident or whatever and didn't get to finish, so I haven't seen him live like this. This is crazy.
He really is doing everything he can to really show that he is the best guy going. Just to give you an update, the fastest lap time we had yesterday was a 41.179. Young could get very close to beating that. Of course, time for the fastest lap of the race yesterday, that was set by Martin Miller. That was actually in the draft. Martin Miller's last time was 41.366. These guys got 5 laps to go before they come onto pit road. The thing is, however, Tim Dodd, if he can go an extra lap on the racetrack, Jeremy, he can avoid having to pit around the same time as Matt Cook and Martin Miller, and therefore, clean track, 1 extra lap, with low fuel, he really has got a chance of being able to, you know, leapfrog these guys. Is actually, Martin Miller's allowing Tim Doyle to go past.
Well, another thing is, earlier in the race, we mentioned about how good of a at pitting Tim Doyle is, so he can gain a lot of time on entry, a lot of time on exit, and after these stops cycle through, hoping they do, hope it stays green, I wouldn't be surprised to see him, up to second, and maybe even made a little bit of ground on Young-woo.
And I think there for Martin Miller, I think he's actually just fallen to the rear of this, so he can surprise the others and pit when he wants to. And actually being at the rear of this pack, Mitch, he actually now has got a tiny bit of an advantage because he doesn't have to worry about Tim Doyle running him over if he decides to come onto pit road in the next lap or so.
You figure the race is early, you don't want to make a mistake. It's easier to pit when you're in the back, so there's probably going to be more cautions. He doesn't really have anything to lose, and it's just a safe bet, so it's just some smart driving this early in the race.
Gap now up to 2.9 seconds in the battle for the race lead. Young-O at 41.202 that last time by. Now, you pretty much don't burn any fuel at all under caution. So, and you're doing, about 0.608 is the fuel number when you're running under green. So, these guys now about a lap away from making their first trip on towards pit road. Matt Cook in second position. Actually, Tim Doyle was thinking about going down to the inside of him there. Thinks better of it for the time being. Also, we talked about the issues with Randy Crosno on that first caution. We thought he tagged the wall. He's fallen back to now 1.8 seconds behind James Swinbanks. Really has got to be some issues going on for Crosno, Mitch, because, he's been very good at this racetrack recently.
Yeah, me and him were having some battles last night. We were pretty evenly matched. He probably did have a faster car, but he was having a good night last night. So to see him struggle today is a little. Maybe he actually did have some damage. I'm not sure.
So, hey, Will, I just sorry, I want to bring up. What did you say the fastest lap time was last night?
Slower than that Young-O just did. It was a 41.179 in the draft. Young-O just did a 41.168, setting the record for the fastest lap time in the Pocono 400 this weekend. And Young-O surely is thinking about coming onto pit road this time by. We're going to keep an eye out on him. We'll keep an eye out on Matt Cook and Tim Doyle as well. Will Young-O come down on towards pit road? No, he doesn't. He will stay out for one more lap. Matt Cook's not going to come onto pit road. Neither is Tim Doyle. Neither is Martin Miller. So maybe just one more lap for these guys as they work themselves down the front straightaway once again. Still have a total of 26 cars scored in the lead lap. Randy Freeman scored 1 lap down. Looks like he's already pitted. Loya Custo had a bent rear ring. He's back out onto the racetrack. 29th place, Ron Mayer Jr. Is scored numerous laps down. And then our sole retiree from the race, Eric Davis, in the number 11 machine. as Jarno down in towards turn number 3 once again. You'll get a very good indication of whether he's actually coming onto pit road, because he'll take turn 3 with a lot less speed, because you need to get that car to the left-hand side. He stays out for another lap, so
but I think
impressive.
Tim Doyle and James Swinbanks are on their way down to pit road.
So Tim Doyle, despite actually being sat in the draft that entire run, Mitch, comes down onto pit road first. Maybe he's just thinking it's safe for him to do so now.
There's that factor, and because he'll have more fuel going into the pits by pitting early, he won't have to stay into the pits as long, so it should work out pretty even. He'll be at a little bit disadvantage coming in early and not having as much gas as everybody else, but it's still early in the race.
He did overshoot his pit box, and that would have cost him about half a second on the racetrack. Now everyone's coming onto pit road. Jarno, your race leader, on towards pit road. You have Daniel Kendall ahead onto pit road. Matt Cook on pit road. Martin Miller onto pit road. Randy Crosno is making that journey on towards pit road. So all of your leaders is onto pit road. And I tell you what, Randy Crosno is very close, getting a black flag speeding penalty there. I think everyone else in front was okay, but we'll keep it with Jarno. Of course, he came in 3.2 seconds to the good over Matt Cook. He doesn't overshoot his pit box at all. Perfect entry for him. Perfect entry for Matt Cook. A perfect entry there for Martin Miller as well. Crosland doesn't look as though he had any issues. So, we'll see who comes out. It's Jarno, who actually comes out into a bit of traffic. And it looks like Matt Cook gets to jump over Martin Miller there as well. And in fact, just increase that gap by about 2-3 car lengths on the racetrack, Rob.
Yeah, it was a blinding pit stop. The pit crew went to work really quickly. It was very, very quick considering the amount of time he stayed out over the other guys. So it did look like Martin Miller had almost got himself a speeding ticket as well, which was his entrance looked a little bit wild.
So they come out as they come in. Your top couple of drivers, Jarno from Matt Cook, from Martin Miller, from Randy Crosno. Swinbanks looks as though he's falling way down the order, however, with what I'm guessing is actually a speeding penalty for him. But Gorg Nudrox is your new race leader. Herman Finder in second, Michael Chin third, Sergei Vanioff in fourth, Ryan Lowe in fifth, Julian Pham in sixth, Jacob Snyder in seventh. All of these guys have not yet pitted. So Nudrox is your race leader, but we expect him to come onto pit road, what, the next 10 laps or so? Actually, probably more realistically in the next 5 laps or so. The important thing is, however, Jarno is still scored only 11 seconds behind the current race leader, and Jarno has a pit stop in hand. Blinding stuff there, and it shows that these guys out front running a tremendous pace, because Nudrox's last lap time of 41.639, Jarno can do that at the start of a run.
Crazy.
Crazy
speed.
I'm sorry. I also want to go back to your in-car adjustments that you brought up earlier today, Will. There have been rumors swirling around the paddock area about drivers using different in-car adjustments for every set of turns here, because every turn is so unique. And I can't confirm nor deny this because I haven't talked to any of the drivers, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Jarno, making a different adjustment for every turn here to get the max out of the car.
Well, in times gone by at Pocono, you always used to run a different weight jacket setting for every different corner. To give you an example, I used to run, for example, 0 on the weight jacket for turn 2, bring it up to +2 for turn 3, then put it down to +1 for turn number 1. In today's era, you can do it with the ARBs, the weight jacket set. It doesn't work as well. But because you're no longer flat out here all the way around, you are having to lift, and you can actually just use that gas pedal to just help turn the car, pretty much like you see them do in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. But the important thing, they will use those tools over the course of a run to help manage that car over the course of it itself. And Jarno last time by a 41.826, they now scored in the 5th position because Julian Pham has come on towards pit road in that IndyCar Enthusiast car. And also Michael Chin has made his pit stop as well. He is back out onto the racetrack. And I said that Swinbanks, I thought he had a speeding penalty. He didn't. He's just fallen back behind Randy Crosno. So a slow pit stop there for James Swinbanks. And Mitch, pitting under green in IndyCar is always incredibly important. There is so much time to be gained or lost. You're really looking for about a 48.5 second in lap But I've seen variances over the course of this week, anywhere from a 48.1, 48.2, all the way to the slower guys doing 40, 41 second in laps, and a lot to be gained or lost.
Yeah, I'm not the best person to ask about coming into doing a good green flag pit stop. I usually take it much easier than most of the other guys. I figure I'd rather win the race on the racetrack than coming into pits, but a lot of times that can't be done, and this is certainly one place where you can gain several seconds, or maybe a second or two over somebody else coming in. So
Matt Cook did a 47.826 pit in lap. Compare that to Young O, who's actually a tenth of a second faster. Of course, Young O could just take it a little bit easier with 3 seconds to play with. Martin Miller's pit in time, a 48.307. And this is, by the way, from the time that you start the lap, you then come around the racetrack, you slow down to 55 miles an hour, and you go past the start-finish straight. Out the top 4 is actually Tim Dahl, who was the slowest. He did a 48.440. And he's actually fallen from the rear now of Matt Cook and Martin Miller. He is right now 1.8 seconds back from the duo of Matt Cook, Martin Miller, who in turn are 3 seconds to the rear of Young O. And Gorgon Udrox, we expect he's just actually come out of pit road, and they were going 3 wide as they did so. It is a log jam down that part of the racetrack. The cars coming on pit road, cars coming off of pit road, and Gary Balkenhagen's looking down to the inside, I believe, of Sam Bonset, and they will carry on going 2 wide for the time being. They've got Tim Mawson ahead of them as well, but Young O is back to the race lead them. And we've been green now for about 40 laps, and this is what these drivers like to see, Rob. Green flag runs are incredibly difficult for these drivers, but keeping a momentum going, you slow down to 55 miles an hour under pace, do that for 4 laps, you kind of forget a tiny bit how that car is running beforehand. It takes you a couple of laps sometimes to get back into that rhythm after a caution.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, you forget where you change your weight jack or you change your roll bar. A lot of drivers will do it in a certain point on the track and just go right, click, click, and that's it, me set. Sometimes you'd be like not paying attention. Oh, missed that point. You don't get in your rhythm, as you said, for a couple of laps, which is round here can cost you a lot of time because, as you say, it's all about momentum. To keep good momentum, you need good rhythm. So away you go. It's all about keeping your mind focused if it goes to caution.
I will say the good news is on lap 1 coming out of the pits, the car's a lot more forgiving with all the grip you have on those cold tires. So it's kind of a use it or lose it. You can go hard on lap 1, but after that, at least for my car, I had to take it easy on the second lap.
Yeah, the first lap, the tyres are amazing. And we've got trouble. Turn number 2, caution is going to be out. And that was Sam Bonser involved in that incident. I have a feeling that might be Gary. In fact, no, it wasn't. It's actually Gorg Nudrox there coming together. This is, I say, down into turn number 2. The Vortex Racing car there, Gorg Nudrox, the number 16 machine, was the one who was coming down on the inside of turn number 2. I'm just having a look to see whether he actually touched the curve a little bit. No, he didn't. He just started getting a little bit loose. The 14 car, Sam Bonset, was pinching him down a little bit. And as soon as those two came together, both of them immediately out of the race. And you've got to give a little bit more room than that, Jeremy, down in turn 2. Bonset was pinching him down a little bit. And of course, you get a better run the lower down you are into the corner. But both their races are now done.
Well, to be honest, that's sort of one of those things. It's still early in the race. Bonset should have possibly thought about maybe giving that spot up, but especially in turn 2, which is without a doubt the tightest corner on this track, too wide usually doesn't work too well.
I don't want to give out too much information, but if somebody has just a little bit of a wing under me going into turn 2, I'll pretty much let them go by 100% of the time.
So, second caution of the day here at the Pocono 400 presented by GlacierTV. Your race leader once again is Young O. Matt Cook second, Martin Miller third, Tim Dahl in 4th position, Randy Cosner in 5th, James Swinbanks in 6th, Miguel Angel Martinez in 7th, Hal Pino in 8th, Randy Freeman 9th, and then Jeffrey Arkenbrand runs out the top 10. We've done, what, 10 laps since the last time these guys at the front made their pit stops? You might want to consider coming in. Again, people towards the rear of the field, people like Gorg Nudrox, who's out the race now, so not him, but people like Herman Fander might consider to come down towards pit road again. I expect to see people like Gary Balkenhagen maybe come onto pit road. Dano Brookins. Out front, is it still a little bit too close to come onto pit road, do you think, Mitch? 10 laps in the books on this run.
I'd say the first half of the field, it would be too early. The second half of the field, they should probably come in because they don't have as much to lose.
It's always that thing. I think once one guy comes in, especially towards the middle of the field, you'll see normally a train of cars just starting with them. A couple of them will try and do the alternative strategy, but we'll get an eye out on that because Jarno is back behind the iRacing.com first safety car once again. As they're going to complete lap number 49 this time by. Is O going to point his car down towards the general direction of pit road? No, he doesn't, but look at this. Matt Cook is going to come in, and now Young's going to come in. Last late turning towards pit road there for Young O. And I'll tell you what, he was actually very close to missing the commitment cone. He had to take a very wide angle there on towards pit road. But everyone is in, so this is now going to be an interesting battle because Matt Cook actually gained a little bit of an advantage with the fact he could just stay straight. Young O had to turn his car. They're both in. Yo slides into his pit box, actually. And Cook is going to take tyres. Young O isn't going to take tyres. So Matt Cook's going to lose out a little bit here. The first guy off pit road, it looks as though that's James Swinbanks for the race.
He dummied it. He didn't pit. He drove down pit lane. I think he missed his pit box. He may have missed his pit box.
We'll get confirmation of that there. So Swinbank's playing a little bit of mind games of his own potentially. In fact, you're completely right. He turned into pit road. He missed his pit box. He came back out. So he basically just took a trip down towards pit road, lost a number of positions on the racetrack in the process. And I think actually everyone did come onto pit road from the top guys. So Dano Brookins right now is scored as your race leader in the number 8 car. James Swinbanks in second. Young O beat out Matt Cook, who beat out Martin Miller, Tim Doyle, and then Randy Crosno, Hal Pino, Jeffrey Arkenbrand, Miguel Angel Martinez, and then James Allard. They are your top 11 guys on the racetrack. For Swinbanks right now, I'm guessing that he's in two minds. I mean, does he come onto pit road? If he does, he's going to lose even more positions. If he stays out, he's got 10 laps less fuel than everyone, which could play out to be his advantage of keeping Young O behind him. But Dano Brookins as well, he's got a chance now to lead laps here. I'll be interested to see whether either of those two come onto pit road, even though they'll probably end up going pretty much to the rear of the field.
Yeah, I think it looks like Young probably definitely didn't want to pit there, but Matt Cook coming in, he pretty much set the precedent for the entire field. Young knows that they're not going to beat him if they're on the same strategy as him, so he just wanted to match the same strategy.
Swinbanks goes to pit road at this time. Let's see if he makes his pit stop.
But Dano Brookins doesn't. So Dano Brookins is going to be the leader of this race for the restart. A number of guys getting waved around the pace car. They include Laura Costa, Herman Fander, Mark Shawley, Brandon Lichberg, Michael Chin. They're all going to get waved around the pace car because they were ahead of the race leader. Lapped cars behind the leader. They don't have to go to the rear of the field until there are 10 laps left to go. This is going to be an interesting restart, I tell you that, because we've talked about how Dano Brookins has had some issues, but of course he's always been running in traffic. He might be a lot faster now he's in clean air, but still, O's going to want to get past him quickly. Matt Cook's going to want to get past him quickly, but also get past Young O at the same time. This could be pretty intriguing, you're going to have to say, on this restart, Jeremy.
Yeah, and if you're in Young O's position, back to those stops, I think you're so fast, you almost have to pit because you don't want to lose the race, knowing that you had to make an extra pit stop, maybe when everybody else behind you pitted. But in that same respect, I think if you're everybody else, in order to beat Young O, you're going to have to do something different with him, because if you stay on the same strategy with him, we've seen how fast he is. He just seems unbeatable unless everyone is holding back right now.
Don't forget, keep in contact with us on Twitter. Use the hashtag iRacingWT, alternatively hashtag iRacingIndy. You can also get in contact with us on YouTube chat as well. hello to Chuck Johnson from GlacierTV. He has a new drinking game. Every time you hear the squeaky toy, have a drinky. Or every time you hear the squeaky, have a drinky. So that's the game that those guys are playing. Remember, to drink responsibly. Meanwhile, pace car is going to make that journey down towards pit road once again. Back to green flag racing with 51 laps. Scored complete of 160 here at Pocono Raceway. Dano Brookins, your race leader. Green flag back in the air here at Pocono.
Oh, and fourth place got an absolute flyer of a restart. Is that Martin Miller? Wow.
Martin Miller's going to go around the outside there of Matt Cook. And he's also got right behind him Tim Dole there as well. He's now going to go down to the inside of Martin Miller. Look at that there by Tim Dole. They're going to be side by side down the short back straightaway before they come down into turn 2. Tim Dole all of a sudden up one position now into the 4th spot. Youngo is going to hound Dano Brookins through turn number 2. You see Brookins there under a tremendous amount of pressure from Young O right now. And this is bunching the field up just a little bit for the time being. This is not what Young O would have wanted. He would have wanted to have got away once again. But your top 3 drivers, they come past the track, but once again, they're going to be separated by just 0.3 of a second on the racetrack. The big news on that restart, Martin Miller losing position to Tim Dole. Tim Dole looks as though he is on the move as here comes Young O, battle for the race lead. O down to the inside, and he will get that pass done very easily.
And here comes Matt Cook.
Brookins.
And Matt Cook followed him through brilliantly. And he's right under. This is going to be good.
Dano Brookins is falling like a fly now. In fact, he's going to allow Martin Miller to go past down into turn number 3. But the battle is on in the race lead. You have a 3-car breakaway. Miller was unlucky. He caught Dano there in turn number 2, losing himself quite a lot of time. So Miller's struggling all of a sudden. He's going to have to hope that he can push the next couple of laps, because the gap between himself and Tim Dole, 0.9 a second on the racetrack as the caution is back out. Caution is back out. The pace car is back out. Our 3rd caution of the day. And we'll find out who that is in just one moment.
Ryan Lowe wrecked it in turn 3. He just lost it.
That is the Pennzoil car there in the number 3 machine. And that was a contact actually, and that was with Brian McEntee down into turn number 3. McEntee just came up the racetrack a little bit, and that tagged Ryan Lowe at almost a secondary impact as well of Ron Mayer Jr., Jacob Snyder, and Brian McEntee. But our 3rd caution of the day, and the one guy who got off very lucky there was Martin Miller in that 6 car, because he's very close to, in fact, he did lose the draft there to that lead group of cars, Mitch.
Yeah, there's probably nobody that wanted to see the caution more than him. So now we'll get bunched up and see if he can't get some spots back here on this restart. I know the Banshee guys probably don't want to have Doyle up there mixing it with them, but we'll see what they can do.
3rd caution of the day, and all of a sudden, Sean Banks is even more in a dire situation, because he scored 17th position on the racetrack, and if he'd stayed out, he would have been in a bad situation. If he'd come on, he would have been in a bad situation. He can't come and pit in now to top off, because they've only really got a couple of laps green. So, that 17 car, James Swinbanks, the 23 car, Swinbanks, is Tim Dole's onto pit road. Tim Dole just darts himself onto pit road, and this is the alternative strategy that I was talking about, Mitch. And we know Tim Dole is that one guy who will go off sequence at any given time randomly. He's probably figured this out, that if this race is go green from now on, he could complete it and not have to stop to do a splash of fuel. Tim Dole taking the risk, and this is going to fool him pretty much down to about the 15th, 16th position. He's kind of lucky that the field isn't bunched up together. He's going to come out in about 15th position, 16th position, just behind James Swinbanks.
It is a risk. It certainly shows that he wants to do what he has to do to win. He's going to lose a lot of track position, obviously, being back there mid-pack. But if it comes down to fuel strategy, he will be in a good position. And if we have, hopefully we don't have any more cautions, but if we do, then his strategy is probably not going to work out the way he wants to.
So, we'll run through your top 10 then. It is Young O from Matt Cook, from Martin Miller, from Dano Brookins, from Randy Cosno, Hal Pino, Miguel Angel Martinez, Jeffrey Arkenbach, and James Allard. But as we approach the 60-lap mark of this race, who's kind of, I don't know what the phrase is I'm looking for here, who's kind of shining out for you right now on this racetrack? Who's that one guy who you're keeping an eye out on, Jeremy?
Young O, without a doubt. I mean, he's the class of the field. He's really going to dictate whether or not someone else wins this race or not.
Yourself, Rob?
It's hard to look past Young O, but Matt Cook's showing a hand quite in that last little bit before the caution come out. He's got a bit of speed in that blue Cookie Monster powered car of his. But Yang drove that first stint amazingly. So those two are the standouts already for me.
And for myself, I'm still intrigued with Matt Cook, because it looks like he's got the better hand over Martin Miller. And I'm surprised, actually, because I've seen Martin Miller make 2 mistakes in this race already, and it's not the sort of thing I expect him to really do at all. And I think he's just cracking a little bit under the pressure. Of course, Matt Cook beat him yesterday. Now they've got Younger in the mix as well. They really can't put their car out of line at all if they're going to have any chance of getting to Victory Road. I think it's actually going to end up being a straight fight between Younger and Matt Cook for this win. Meanwhile, the lights are back out on the iRacing.com pace car, so we're going to go back to green flag racing, this time with 56 laps scored complete in this race. Live timing continues to be available on isowc.org/live. That is isowc.org/live. And don't forget, the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series returns in a little under 2 weeks' time for the 11th round of the championship. That will be from the historic Indianapolis Motor Speedway, running, of course, on the road course. That will be start time for that, as always, 2 p.m. GMT, here, live on Glacier TV. These cautions are incredibly long.
I want to bring up something from that last restart. Daniel Brookins, who led the field to the green on that last restart, he wasn't hugging it against the wall like I expected it to, and everyone else behind him sort of just followed suit. And it allowed a couple guys to, lose some spots that could have easily been, not lost.
Well, technically, when you're the leader, don't forget that you can't pass the leader either left or right until you go past the start-finish line. So, in that respect, actually, it doesn't really matter what the lead car does. It's everyone else behind who's got to really defend their position. But we'll see what Young O does once again, as he's going to bring that field back to green flag racing. Our third caution of the day going to be complete. We've had a long green flag run. Let's try and have another one. Green flag back in the air.
And I think Matt Cook tried to time that restart a little bit, and he closed up too much on Young O, and he had to get off the throttle to slow it down, and then I think Young O saw that and just took off to get a huge gap.
Yeah, already Young O has a 0.5 of a second gap over Matt Cook, and they're not even completing the first lap of green flag racing here once again. And that's that thing, Mitch, you've got to time those restarts. A little bit of luck involved, but the leader can always go whenever he or she wants to.
I can guarantee you, Young was looking in his rearview mirrors, and as soon as he saw Matt Cook jump and get off, he gunned it, because you can really catch somebody with their pants down when they're trying to do something like that to you.
Conclusion of the first lap then. The gap is about 4 tenths of a second. In fact, Matt Cook just closed up a little bit, actually, through turns to number 2 and 3. So he has got the draft for the time being. Martin Miller a further 2 tenths of a second back. Daniel Brookins is still holding strong, actually, in that 4th position. Randy Cosno in 5th, Dale Pino 6th. And it looks as though right now we are setting ourselves up for a 3-horse race out front. Young O, Matt Cook, Martin Miller. But Matt Cook's lines are just looking sublime at the moment. He's not put a foot wrong this entire race.
Well, the problem about that is neither is Young O.
Yeah, he's got a point. I feel sorry for the gentleman playing that drinking game with the squeaky ball, because last time Jeremy spoke, they must have had a good 3 bottles.
Well, we've had a little bit of an incident between the number 23 and 24 cars. That is actually James Winbanks and Gary Borkenhagen. They came together a little bit into turn number 1. Gary Borkenhagen, looks like he just came down into that inside line, had a little bit of contact with James Winbanks, both of them carrying on. But a close call there for both drivers. Winbanks was able to complete that pass on Gary Borkenhagen, moving himself up into the 14th position on the racetrack. Your race leader still remains to be Young O's. He comes past the stripe once again. That gap is down by another 100th of a second. And Matt Cook's actually pulled out a 4 tenths of a second gap now over. And let's not forget, Rob, that earlier on in this run, it was Miller leading from Cook. And that's when Young O pulled away. It does look as though that Matt Cook can just about hang with Young O. But when that fuel goes down, O just finds this magical 7th gear.
Yeah, he does. It's crazy how fast he can pull away. But on the full tank, as you say, that Matt can hang, which is good. You know, it keeps him in the hunt. But I did think the gap they pull, you know, with sort of 8-10 laps before his fuel stop, he just puts the hammer down and sort of waves his right hand out of the cockpit and says, "Ciao for now."
Meanwhile, we talked about Tim Doyle. He came into pit road. He's already back up into the 11th position, and he's involved in a very tight battle right now between James Allard and Randy Freeman. And Tim Doyle is not going to try and make it 3 wide. He is going to try and make it 3 wide. Careful there, Tim. There was no way that he could have made that happen. They're still 2 wide ahead, and now Tim Doyle's going to go to the inside of James Allard, but he's being bulked a little bit there by Randy Freeman. He's going to now try and go down the inside of Randy Freeman. He's not going to be close enough for the centre of the corner. He's a lot better, however, and Tim Doyle is going to try and get that position. The straight line advantage of Freeman, that outside line was working better. 3 wide as they come down into turn number 1, and look at Mawson go down on that inside. Watch out, boys, there's nowhere to go, Roll. And look at that
contact.
Freeman there. And it looks like he will keep going, but he's losing a ton of positions. And Randy Freeman, you could argue, might be out of the race there. That was quite a bit of contact. 3 wide into turn 1 never works. They got it 2 wide. Freeman just turned into the corner a little bit too much. And I'm just having a look. He might have a little bit of side pod damage as well.
Tell you what, though, Tim Doyle lucked out huge right there to not have any front wing damage from that.
He was incredibly lucky, and he's also now up into the 10th position on the racetrack, so he gained a position out of that, and now is closing up to the rear of Tim Mawson in 9th. If he can get past him, he's got himself about 2 seconds of clean air. We can really put the hammer down and close up to Jerry Arkenbrandt ahead of him, and Tim Doyle actually is not in as bad a position as we were thinking with that caution in many ways, Mitch. That was mainly because of the fact that field wasn't really bunched up, and Tim Doyle could take advantage of that, come up, top up with gas, get some fresh tyres, knowing that the entire field won't get past him.
Yeah, but he is a little lucky to still be in the race after some of those incidents. So, I mean, it's all risk and reward. He's making it work so far, but he certainly had his close calls.
And to give you how difficult that lap was for him, he did a 42.6 that lap. The lap after, he did a 41.889. Now, losing almost a second on an oval, regardless of what oval it is, Rob, that is a big loss. And he now has a 1.3 second gap before he gets to Arkenbrandt. Thankfully, the cars ahead of him, they are pretty much single file, and they pretty much are running line astern for the time being, so we can pick them off one at a time.
Yeah, as you said, one second's a mammoth amount to lose on a oval. Oval races tend to talk tenths as being a fair amount. So, yeah, it's lucky all the cars in front are running single file. Swinbanks looking to make the pass down into turn 1 on James Allard just behind, and decided better of it. So he's looking to try and follow Tim through the pack. But yeah, go on.
I was going to say also, Gary Borgenhagen, technical issues for him. He, for the time being, is going to be classified as out of the race. So, tough times there for the broken aero car of Gary Borgenhagen. And you're right. You see this with Tim Doyle and Young O anyway, when they're running line or stern. You know, Young O is normally the hot knife that cuts through the butter, and Tim Doyle just follows him through. If Swinbanks can get past Allard on this lap into turn number 1, perhaps, and then stick behind Tim Doyle, those two could actually work together to get himself through the field. But Swinbanks, he's going to try and dive it low down into the corner, very late in doing so. And what that meant was Allard was just able to run that outside line. And in fact, he didn't even really break a sweat there at all, did the number 5 car of James Allard. He will keep, for the time being, that 10th position on the racetrack. And it shows that 2-wide racing really is possible here, Jeremy.
Yeah, but it's also extremely difficult and extremely risky. And most of the time, in order to go to turn 1 full throttle, you got to have that preferred line. And I don't know about if you're above someone, but if you're definitely below someone and you do not even have the right arc going into the corner, you're going to have to lift. And if you have someone under you that doesn't want to lift, especially if it's late in the race, that could equal trouble.
Your battle for the race lead, Young-O once again has just turned up that wick. He has a 9/10 of a second gap over Matt Cook, so just about to break that draft once again. Martin Miller is a further 0.8 of a second back, so this top three, they're about as spread out as we've seen them all race long. And it does look as though that Miller right now is struggling at the start of a run to make an impression.
Some guys can handle the full fuel load a little bit better than others. I know you really have to take it a little bit easier when you have 22 gallons in the car. But once he gets to about half a tank, he'll probably be about even with everybody else.
So working lap number 68 now of 160 here in the iRacing.com Pocono 400. And the story of the day, it really has been the Young-O show. An hour into this race, he's led pretty much every single lap except for when they were cycling through green flag pit stops. It's been absolutely dominant out front. Matt Cook second, Martin Miller third, Randy Corsano back up into fourth. Danny Brookins rounds out your top five. And down the field, I mean, there's still some very intense battles going on. James Swinbank still has not been able to get past James Allard. Now he's going to once again look down to the inside, down into turn number one. He has a much better arc into the corner, but this is exactly what you were saying, Jeremy, because you have to have a good run through the corner to get that momentum. This time, because of the fact that Allard had to get out of the gas on the exit of the corner, Swinbanks can finally go past. But on that inside line, you just haven't got the turning radii.
Per gallon. That's an extra 154 pounds going into these race cars, you know, during a pit stop, which is, that's like 1/10 of the weight, which is just huge, and that's why fuel load is such a critical factor for these cars.
We apologise for the sound loss we had there just a moment ago. We are now back with you, so you can hear our dulcet tones once again. But Allard now has fallen back behind James Swinbanks, so Swinbanks back into the top 10, Allard back out of it. And Tim Doyle is also been able to get past Jeffrey Arkenbrandt as well. And so Tim Doyle continues his charge as Dano Brookins is starting to fall down the order. We saw this earlier on that Brookins is good at the start of the run, Rob. A little bit later on, he does start to struggle in that number 8 P1 racing car. And right now, he is scored down, as I say, in the 7th position on the racetrack. He's lost out recently to Hal Pino and Miguel Angel Martinez.
Yeah, I don't know whether he's just pushing hard at the start of his running, just cooking his tyres and then struggling on with it, and that's why he falls back. Because it's not just a fall off, it's like he leaps off a cliff. Do you know what I mean? It's not a sort of a it's not a nice way of losing positions, but it won't. I don't think it'll be long before Tim catches him up. To be honest, what is he? The gap's 2 seconds. I reckon 3 laps and Doyle will be on the back door of him.
So up to lap number 72 now in this race, and it looks like we're going to have ourselves another nice long green flag run. 20 cars scored on the lead lap. We have 2 cars scored 1 lap down. They are Daniel Kendall and Lauro Costa. In fact, they're not separated by much on the racetrack, only about 3-4 seconds between them two. The cars scored 1 lap down. Ron Mayer Jr. scored 3 laps down. Cars out of the race, you have Randy Shoemake, Gary Borkenhagen, Julian Pham, Ryan Lowe, Sam Bonzet, Gork Newjogs, of course, the first caution of the day, and Eric Davis. And it's, I have to say, people like Julian Pham that as well. I know Julian was looking really forward to this race. Unfortunate that he is out so early, but this is a track which really does eat up drivers, Rob. And you know, you make one tiny mistake, your race is going to be over before you even think about it. And you might just actually just tap the wall yourself. If you tap the wall, it's game over for you. Nothing that you can do. You bend the suspension up, and you're not going to be able to turn another lap.
Exactly, it is a nightmare track. It's brilliantly rewarding to drive. I threw away a really good qualifying run by 0xing on the exit of 2, believe it or not. I don't know whether I fell asleep on the entrance, but on the exit I just touched the wall. Just touched it, just kissed it, and ruined my run completely. In practice it was the same. You make one mistake, you get your line wrong one time and you're in the wall, or you're backing out so you don't hit the wall and people are flying past you. So such a tough track. It's anyone that thinks oval racing is easy and it's you're just turning left, come race at Pocono, that'll change your mind.
And especially to be fast here, you have to literally use every inch of that racetrack. If you watch any of these guys, they're right next to the wall going in on quarter entry, and then they get off right next to it on the exit. And you know, if you lose focus for just a tenth of a second or a split second, or just you forget kind of what you're doing, you'll be done in a hurry.
And meanwhile, that gap again, Matt Cook, he seems to be that first 10 laps of run, he can stay there, right there with Young O. In fact, the first 5 laps, he was actually faster than Young. Then O starts just pulling away. He gets to about 9 tenths per second ahead, and he can pull out 2 tenths per second a lap over Matt Cook. Once again, that gap is up to 1.6 seconds on the racetrack, and Cook is actually starting to fall back into the clutches of Martin Miller. So Miller looks as though that he's actually improving on this second green flag run, and Matt Cook's now the one that's struggling.
And we have silence. Yeah, it does. It's weird because Matt looked strong at the end of the last run. He was going quick. I don't know whether it's one of those where it's like, can I save a lap of fuel, or can I do this? Is it worth chasing him down? Can I, there's got to be a lot of things running through a top driver's head. Sadly, I'm not a top driver, so I haven't got a Scooby-Doo. But there's got to be all those like equations going on in an IndyCar race. It's like, if I can save a bit of fuel here, I know I'm not going to catch him, but if I can go a lap longer, will that help me out later on in the race? Mitch and Jeremy will be able to tell you that a lot more than I can, so I'll let them continue.
I think it swings and roundabouts, to be fair. There's positives to pitting a lap later. There are also negatives to it. Positives are, of course, that you can go an extra lap, or you can go an extra fast lap, and you can normally have a bit of a clean journey on towards pit road as well. If you are later going to pit road, the only issues is that you have to spend a little bit more time, especially late onto the race, to fill up that tank. And every lap here that you're on pit road, you are having to give up, for every lap, it's about 5 tenths per second to put fuel into the car. So you've got to bear that in mind when you come onto pit road, because every little thing helps. And if you're not actually that much faster than your competitors, it doesn't necessarily matter whether you do that extra lap and the speed, because you're going to have to pave that on pit road itself. And as we come towards the halfway point of this race, it does seem to be the course of the day, though, Mitch, is that if we can keep it clean for about 10 laps, and all of a sudden, that these guys are very, very good at just keeping it single file, working themselves methodically through traffic, and having some long green flag runs, as Dana Brookins is onto pit road.
Yeah, it's starting to have a green flag feel to it. I wouldn't be surprised if we do have any more cautions. It might be with only a few laps to go, so fuel strategy might be starting to come into play.
Working ourselves on lap number 79 of 160 now, and Dano actually just let a couple of cars go past him so he can get an easier run onto pit road himself. Tim Dole in that number 1 car is now up into the 8th position. James Swinbanks is now right behind Jeffrey Arkenbrand, and actually Tim Dole has not been able to pull
Dano
away
Brookins
that
just
much.
come to pit lane, sorry, I missed that.
James Swinbanks now right behind Jeffrey Arkenbrand, but Tim Dole is not actually pulling away from Arkenbrand at all. And this has actually allowed Swinbanks to close that gap back up. And all of a sudden, Swinbanks has got a good chance of trying to, have a little bit of a fight with Tim Dole on the racetrack. And this is uncharacteristic for Tim Dole, in the fact that he's not really running at the same pace as the guys ahead of him. In fact, last time by, he barely took any time out of the Alpino at all.
Let's keep in mind Tim's running with more fuel in his tank than everybody else that he's surrounded by.
But not by much. Remember that there's only about, 4 or 5 laps, less than that, of green. So caution's out. 4th caution of the day. The caution has come out once again at Pocono. So this will be a game changer. Gonna get confirmation of who that was, and we saw it was Randy Shoemaker actually. He blew up on the racetrack. That didn't bring the caution out. It was someone else somewhere. We're gonna get confirmation of exactly who it was, but caution say once out once again even at the racetrack. And this is going to be interesting now because the field will come back together. Everyone will come onto pit road this time. It's pretty much important that they do so because they're going to need to get that fuel back into the car.
Randy Friedman. Randy Freeman got all sorts of crazy loose going into that turn for some reason.
And it looks like he might have just tagged the rear. A little, yeah, he did. He just tagged the rear, actually, of James Allard. That spun him around. No one else involved. Caution came back out. The car's lining up back behind the iRacing.com pace car, which right now is working itself on the exit of turn number 1. This probably is going to be the most important pit stop of the race so far. We're past at half race distance now. For people like Tim Doll, they're going to spend less time on pit row, so he could realistically get himself back up into the top 5. For Youngo, Matt Cook, Martin Miller, one little slip up and they're going to go down the order quite substantially. So that second half of the race kicks in now, and for those 3 guys, it's almost as if the field's negated once again. The top 4 in this race are running in the same order that they started this race. So pretty much reset the clock, boys. Let's go racing for another 78 laps.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's see how many spots Tim Doyle can make up here in the pits, having to take less fuel. But again, was it worth all the risk he's had to go through to get back to the same spot, but having to navigate his way through all the traffic?
Now, I'm going to have a look to see just how long that green flag run was. And I make it 2 laps of green, then a total of 2 laps under caution. So that'll be, what, about 1.5 gallons, which will work out to be somewhere in the region of a second. Probably just less than that. So realistically, Tim Doyle's probably going to gain 1, maybe 2 positions. He'll be right back into that 5th position where he started this race. Pit road is open. Here comes Youngo. Here comes pretty much the entire field. Cook on towards pit road. Herman Fander stays out, actually, but I think he scored a lap down. You see, indeed, he is. Martin Miller is on pit road. There's a barbecue going down there as well. Cosno on, Miguel Martin Martinez on, Tim Darling towards pit road, and we'll get confirmation of who comes out first, as once again Tim Doyle just overshoots his pit box the tiniest amount. The race off pit road, who is it going to be? It's going to be O first, and actually look at that, Tim Doyle, he gained positions there. He's able to get himself ahead of both Randy Cosno and Martin Miller. Miller had arguably a horrible pit stop there, losing 1 position, and Randy Cosno was able to just get out ahead of Jeffrey Arkinbrunt.
Not as bad as Swinbank. Swinbank's had a nightmare. He had to reverse his car back into his pit box again. So he's lost a load of positions. But yeah, it looks like Tim Doyle rolled the dice and Yahtzee got it right.
So, working ourselves once again under caution. Our 4th caution of the day here in the iRacing.com Pocono 400. I'm going to say that again. The iRacing.com Pocono 400, presented by GlacierTV. The good thing about single flight restarts is that they only ever really do about 3 proper laps under caution. They're already pretty much going to be towards the 2 to green right now. And you're kind of right there, Tim Doyle. He rolled the dice. It came out well for him. But at the same time, you're kind of right there at the same time as well, Mitch. Was it worth that risk and reward just to be able to jump, you know, people who you jumped early on in this race?
Well, of course, we don't know what's going to happen, if there's going to be more cautions or not, from the time that he did change up his strategy. But obviously, he's had to work a lot harder than everybody else to retain where he is on the racetrack.
And as we said, the fuel number under green is about 0.608. You burn pretty much nothing under caution. You're probably burning something in the region of 0.150 gallons per lap. So when you put all of that into perspective, realistically, these guys are going to have to make 2 more pit stops at least in this race. If they're going to have any, well, to get to the end anyway. But a fuel tank will do them. I don't know. I think they're still going to have to make a splash and dash at the end, Jeremy.
Possibly. As always, I'm not the best person to talk about when it comes to pit strategy or fuel mileage numbers or whatever. I think Rob might be a better person to ask about that.
We've just done the maths.
I
actually.
asked Will.
We've just done the maths.
Normally.
They, with 2 extra stops from here on in, they will do 70, 71, maybe 72 laps. And they have a total of 76 laps to go. And Mitch, realistically, if it was, you know, 2 laps they'd had to save over the course of the run, if it was go green, it'd be worth risking. The way it is that everyone's going to have to make a splash of fuel, a splash and go towards the end of the race, if it was to go green from here on in, because they're going to have 86 laps left to go, 85 laps left to go once we go back to green flag racing. 86 laps left to go. So, realistically, they've got 6 laps which they're going to have to fire, and it's going to be very tough to do it, even at a long track like this.
Yeah, I don't know if one more caution will get you there or not, but towards the end of the race, I'd probably count on there being at least one more, with people trying to mix it up.
So, lights off on the pace car. Going to go back to green flag racing with 84 laps scored complete in this race. Then it'll be O from Matt Cook, from Miguel Angel Martinez. Great, he's up to the 3rd position. Tim Dahl up into 4th. Martin Miller down to his lowest position in this race, 5th. Xiao Pino in 6th. Randy Courtenay 7th. Jerry Arkenbrand in 8th. James Allard in 9th. And Tim Mawson in 10th. Green flag back in the air. And once again, Young-O able to get the jump there over Matt Cook. It looks like this time, Matt Cook was just a little bit cautious on that restart. Angel Martinez able to slot into that 3rd position by the look of it. Tim Dahl in 4th. Martin Miller in 5th, but Tim Dahl gets a very good run out of turn number 1 as they come down the back straightaway. Expect him, I think, to start challenging Martinez in probably about the next lap and a half once these cars get fully up to speed. But out front, it's still Young-O, as actually Tim Dahl clips the curb just a tiny bit there on the entry of turn 2, and we have a spin, and that will bring out a caution. No, it won't for the time being. Cars, a couple of them are slowed down. It was Ron Mayer Jr. Don't bring it back onto the racetrack. He will force a caution if you do that. There's cars around you. There is none, unfortunately. But we will stay green for the time being. And that gap out front, 0.3 of a second. This is as close as Matt Cook's been at the start of a run. However, we know if he's going to have any chance of actually doing one in this race, he's going to have to find a way past Young-O, which is much, much easier said than done. And Rob, second half of the race now, it really is go time for Matt.
It is. He's got to put his foot firmly on that noisy pedal and let it sing. But I'm just watching Tim Doyle just behind. Actually, he's trying to set Miguel up for a pass. I think he wants a bit of this as well. I think he's got a really strong race car, well, as his teammates are already showing. So he needs to get involved, and he wants to hurry past Miguel quite quickly, I think.
So, down into turn number 1 once again. In fact, this will be his opportunity. Tim Dye, if he can get a good one, he does get a good one off the corner. Now what he needs to do is slide it down to the inside, go side by side down into turn number 2. He will have the line down into the 2nd corner, and Miguel will just allow him to breeze past, fall back into line behind him. Tim Dahl up into the 3rd position. He is 0.7 seconds behind Matt Cook, so just about within draft range. And this is interesting because for the first time in this race, we're going to see the relative pace of Young-O and Tim Dahl in a very close environment, Mitch.
Yeah, I know they'd like to work together and help draft each other to pull away a little bit further from the Banshee guy. So if Tim can get up there behind Young, Banshee's going to be in a little bit more trouble.
Matt Cook right now is the lone Aero X guy scored in that 2nd position, running within any chance of really being able to work on that draft. Randy Cosno in 5th. The other Aero X guy is scored 2 seconds behind your race leader. Then the other Aero X guy, James Swinbanks, he's down in 13th. He's having a tough day right now. But we're going to go through the field quickly. We're going to start, of course, with that number 4 car of Young-O. Pretty much led every lap there is to lead, except for a couple here in this race. And Rob, you know, simply he's been dominant the entire race. Matt Cook behind him, however, clearly is the guy to give him the closest challenge.
Definitely, the cookie monster can see a cookie on Young-O's gearbox for sure, and wants it because he's flying. He's closing a massive amount just on the straight in that corner. I don't know if Yang out back out or got his line wrong slightly, but that was uncharacteristic. But yeah, Matt's right in the hunt.
Third place, Tim Doyle, of course. He's been up and down in this race. He started it in what was the 5th position on the racetrack. He decided to use strategy a little bit early on to try and get himself back through the field. It kind of worked for him. And Tim Doyle now running in the 3rd position. And Jeremy, this is the Tim Doyle that we all know and love. And he was very cautious at the start of the race. Now into that second half, we saw it with that pass over Martinez, a bold move into turn 2. I think he's now starting to turn up the wicket bit as well. And he wants to get back into the fight, although he's now scored 1.1 seconds behind the battle for the race lead.
Definitely, with the top 2 drafting right now, I think he may need another caution to have any shot at this. You know, I could be wrong though. I've been wrong before. But yeah, this is the Doyle we know. He's one of the most respected guys among the IndyCar community. He's a very clean driver, and he's kind of like a closer, to where he may not be there at the beginning, but he's always there at the end.
And Martin Miller has come onto pit road. I'm wondering whether he got a stop and go penalty. We're just gonna have a look to see what happened to him. But Martin Miller has probably thrown himself out of contention in this race. Actually just trying to see what happened to him. He didn't get loose off the corner or anything. So he must have got a black flag in some way, shape or form. No, he didn't. He just topped up with gas. Very confusing. But Martin Miller's pretty much put himself out of the running now. He scored as the last guy in the lead lap in the 32nd position.
Yeah, that's a bit weird. Go on, Jeremy, sorry.
I just want to point out that Jeffrey Ankenbrandt, which he was running 7th about 3 or 4 laps ago, he annihilated that wall off of turn 1, and it has killed his car, and he's 2 laps down now, just coming out of the pits, and he's almost spinning in turn 1. Way off the pace, though.
We've got word as well. Actually, Martin got a black flag due to the fact that he passed Dano Brookins on the inside before the green flag came out to restart the race. He was able to top up with fuel, so actually that might help him out a little bit later on in this race, Mitch, because those extra gallon and a half could be, if this race goes green, what he needs to get to the end. He's going to be in clean traffic. I mean, what? Nearest car 17 seconds ahead of him now. That is Herman Fander, scored in the 17th position in the number 21 Vortex car. But it's one of those things, actually, he's paid the price, but he's been forced now onto an alternative strategy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. He'll certainly be lucky if it works out for him. I guess, well, he's not going to want to see any more caution flags. He wants it to go green the rest of the way, but we'll see. It's definitely an uncharacteristic mistake from him.
Running right now in the 5th position is Randy Crosno. He is about half a second behind Miguel Angel Martinez. And we haven't really talked about Martinez, but he's kind of been there in the fray for pretty much the entire race run, doing a sterling job running in that 4th position among some very fierce competition. And he's still holding his own against the likes of Tim Doyle and also Randy Crosno as well. Of course, Tim Doyle was able to get past him, but took a lot of effort. Randy Crosno, we still think he has some damage to his race car because it's not been the Randy Crosno, as I said earlier, that we've come to be used to in the IndyCar series recently.
Yeah, Miguel's like, I didn't even know anything about him, to be fair, coming into this race. You know, when you look down at the names and you look at the contenders and who's going to be running in the top 10 and stuff like that, didn't even cross my mind. But yeah, he's got a very quick race car and he's wheeling that car very well.
Go on, Jeremy.
Yeah, I just want to point out that back to Randy Crosno, if he does have damage or did have damage, you know, he obviously probably still does because the suspension's been on these very easily. But to be running in 5th, maybe with damage, is very respectable. And if he ends up finishing up there, you know, he can give himself a pat on the back for that, because wheeling one of these with, you know, any kind of damage on it, it's a handful.
Indeed, it is, and especially at a track like this where, you know, you can't get away with it at the same place like Texas, for example, where you can actually just use the same steering motion in the car and survive. Here, it talks about just how narrow that groove is. It does create huge issues for these drivers. And Crosno holding on. Cal Pino as well. He took a bit of an absence away from the IndyCar series previously. He's back in the game once again, running in that 6th position in the number 15 car. He's not too far behind Randy Crosno. He's also been able to pull away from the 3-car pack that is James Allard, Tim Mawson, and James Swinbanks. In fact, we're going to turn our attention to that momentarily because Swinbanks is closing, is being able to get past actually Tim Mawson now. So, I will say James Allard, he's now up into the 7th position, taking 2 cars on 1 lap, Mitch.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he can do here. I'm not too familiar with him, but he's certainly looking strong here today. That's for sure. I also like to see what Randy Freeman is out here doing today. He's really come from the rear of the pack to, well, he's in the top 5 now.
And I think he's done, a great job in this race as well. Having to really work your way through a field like that is incredibly tough to see happen. One thing that I am incredibly interested in, we'll turn our attention back to the race lead. Cook is actually holding on to the rear, or he was holding on to the rear of Young O, where again, at that point when Young is just beginning to stretch his legs, but those two are able to open up a 3-second gap over Tim Doyle, and Cook's been able to be in that draft range the entire time. Last time by, in fact, Cook was actually a couple of hundredths of a second faster than Young O. We'll see what their lap times are as they come past the start-finish line once again. Cook's fastest lap is 41.242. Young O's a 41.165. Past the stripe once again, 41.566 there, compared to a 41.457. So O took out an entire 10th that last time by. Matt Cook's laps once again very consistent, just like Young O's were a little bit earlier on in this race. And those lap times pretty much separated by just a couple of hundredths lap on lap. But now, again, he's just beginning to turn up that wick. And the way the draft works here, Mitch, if he can get himself another couple of attempts away, he can just start eking it out 10th by 10th. And then all of a sudden, Matt Cook will lose 2 to 3 tenths of a second a lap again.
Yeah, obviously the closer you are to somebody, the easier it is to keep up with them. But you ask different guys, they have different opinions. But for me, it seemed like about 8 tenths, 9 tenths of a second back, I could really feel a difference. But so once Young gets out to about that distance, I don't think that Matt's going to have much of an advantage being behind him, and Young could probably just pull away that much more.
And that last time by, Cook actually closed up a couple of hundredths. So it's not over yet in this battle for the race lead. And Cook is giving it his all. But we know that at any moment, Young O can just decide to hit that gas pedal. And he will dance off into the sunset. Of course, one of the most established and well-known guys in the ISL IndyCar community here on iRacing. Last time by, though, a 31.556. Matt Cook was able to eke out a full 10th over him that last lap, Jeremy.
Yeah, and what I'm wondering about Matt right now is, do you think he's just trying to hang with Young, or do you think he's maybe saving a little fuel, or do you think he actually, if he does get close enough to him, or do you think he's going to try and take the lead from Young?
Well, you naturally will save a little bit of fuel sat there behind another car, because of course they open up that huge cavity of air, which helps the fuel efficiency on that car. It comes at a little bit of a price, especially at a track like this, with a little bit of drag, a little bit of turning difficulties. But I think Matt will stay behind Young for the time being. It'd be pointless for him to go past Young, because it looks as though the O's car is geared perfectly in 6th gear, so that he probably breezed back past the next lap. But again, those two still separated by nothing on the racetrack. In the last 5 laps, they pulled out another half a second over Tim Doyle, who's running in that 3rd position as well. Down the field very quickly, we're going to have a look at the battle for 13th through 15th position on the racetrack. That is Mark Chorley, Brian McEntee, and Sergei Ivanov. And they are having a nice little battle actually right now. Chorley leading that group. A little bit of rear wing damage to his car a little bit earlier on in that race. It looks like it looks like his rear wing is fine now. But McEntee behind him and Sergei Ivanov, they're still doing a good job, and they've scored 13th through 15th respectively, with now 16 cars scored on the lead lap. So then, we have ourselves less than 60 laps left to go in the iRacing.com Pocono 400 here on GlacierTV. Wil Vincent, Jeremy McClusker, Mitch McCracken and Rob Cuss here with you until the conclusion of this race. Been racing just under an hour and a half now, as we're turning ourselves to lap number 104. And once again, O's starting to pull up that gap over Matt Cook. The last car on that lead lap is still Martin Miller, and I'm intrigued to see what will happen to him. As I say, he is almost forced onto an alternative strategy now, and in my books he'll be about, what, a lap short, Mitch, perhaps? And you can make up a lap at this track pretty easily, especially if you're having to work through some slower traffic.
Well, I think you could make it, barely make it 34 laps. So I'm not sure what lap he pitted on. Maybe if he can just pull up behind somebody and take it easy, yeah, he might be able to save another lap's worth of gas.
And meanwhile, Miguel Martinez is trying to close up to the rear of Randy Crosno. We're going to turn our attention to that very quickly. And Martinez looking to get himself back up into that 4th position. And they've been to and fro, these two, on the racetrack pretty much the entire race, Crosno and Martinez. And Martinez's car looks as though it fell into a little bit of a slump about a third of the way through the run, but he's back into that groove once again. And he's starting to close back up, Rob.
Yeah, he's been lapping quite consistently. Like, his last few laps have been there or thereabouts, you know, within a few hundreds of each other. And he's just in that draft zone that we were talking about earlier with some of the other drivers. And he's running a good line all the way around. I think he's slightly better through turn 1 than Randy is. And gains about a car length down there, so obviously turn 2 is fairly straightforward as a corner, but see if we can close the gap into turn 3, because that's the hardest corner for me on this track.
The important thing out front, however, once again, Mitch, Younger has been able to start breaking that draft. The gap so came last time by 7/10 of a second. This lap alone, it looks as though actually Cook just able to hold on there. Just lost 1/100th of a second. But Cook is having to fight because Zhang, it seems to be, he can just turn out consistent laps. And when he does hit all 3 corners perfectly, he'll just pull out a 10th. Easy.
Yeah, Cook is still going to be able to feel some of the effects of the draft and benefit his lap times a little bit from it. But if Young's able to break that 8/10, 9/10 second barrier, then I don't think that Matt is going to be able to continue to keep up. So last time it looked like Young might have had a bad lap, and it let Matt pull back into him. So we'll see if he can keep it consistent and break that draft.
So they continue along, working lap number 108 of 160 right now. Total of 16 cars scored on the lead lap. The last of them is Martin Miller in the number 6 Banshee Autosport car, who we have confirmation did take a splash of fuel on that lap. He thinks he is 2 laps short in this race. That still is doable, and I'll tell you what, there are a couple of drivers in this field who are tremendous at saving fuel. Martin Miller is one of them. Tim Doyle is one of them. Randy Crosno is one of them as well. Also people like Michael Ching, Dano Brookins, very good at saving fuel. And try it like this, though, Mitch. You can do it just by, you talked about it earlier, the way you roll out the gas, especially into turn 3. Just the way that you do it, just a little bit earlier, get onto it a little bit slower. And if you do that for an entire run, you can gain it. But you've got to be committed to the cause, because you probably will be about a 10th of a lap slower by doing it that way.
Pocono is a big track. 2 laps is a lot to try to save on fuel here. If he can do it, it'd be pretty impressive. Like you said, he definitely has to commit to the cause there. He's going to have to be getting off that throttle quite a bit and using the draft wherever he can.
And to committing, you have to be committed early. You can't just, look at the last 20 laps, say, oh, you're going to be short, and then start saving. It's something you've got to be prepared for, maybe like a pit stop or 2 ahead of time.
Well, yeah, that's that entire thing. And if he starts doing it now, he's got every chance of doing so. If he starts it after that last pit stop, it's going to be too late for him to happen. A couple of other guys I want to talk about very quickly. We've got Tim Mawson and James Allard. They are continuing their battle for 8th and 9th positions on the racetrack. Mawson running in the 8th position there in that number 18 car, and James Allard is running in the 9th position. And these two, their lap times have been pretty consistently close. Last time, but Allard was able to take out about a tenth and a bit of a second out of Tim Mawson. It does look as though he's closing up once again as they work themselves through turn number 3, but this time Allard just getting himself a little bit tight on the centre of the corner. They're going to roll it off past the start finish line. In turn 3 alone, he lost a tenth of a second, and having a look at the lap times this time, he loses half of a tenth over Mawson, and that's that dirty air effect starting to come into play there, Rob.
Yeah, it doesn't make it easy sometimes when you're working hard, and it's very car setup dependent as well. Then I tried a few different setups in practice and just playing around with stuff, and some were great in a draft behind another car. Some were poor, awful. You just suddenly wash out, and you're like, oh, what's going on? Where did that come from? I didn't do that before. So it can catch you out. But Tim Mawson was looking. I've been in quite a few practice sessions with him. He's been fairly decent in all those. He is having a blindingly good run. Because he started. Where did he start? He started in the 22nd spot, and he's running 8th. So that's a good day's work for him at the moment.
Yeah, you have to be careful when working yourself through traffic here. I started the race on pit road yesterday, and you have to really careful. And there's a lot of craziness that can go on around you. You've just got to make sure that you just take every car one at a time, and not put yourself into too many difficult situations. Just having a look, the last time that the leaders pitted was lap number 85. We're working right now on lap 113. That means, once again, guys, we're 5 laps away from green flag pit stops. And all of a sudden, you saw it in the space of, 3 laps, O's been able to pull out a 0.6 of a second gap more over Matt Cook. So now that gap is up to 1.3 seconds on the racetrack. Going to turn our attentions to Dano Brookins, Michael Chin very quickly. Michael Chin is trying to close up to the rear of Dano Brookins, and Dano has led laps in this race here today. He fell back, and that middle part of the run there, I keep on saying it, Jeremy, is where Dano suffers. Now we're into that last third of it. It seems like he's being able to pick up the pace just a little bit, but his last lap, a 42.028, that's about half a second slower than his fastest lap of the race, and not the speeds that he wants to be doing right now. As he builds it, he's a lot quicker this lap.
Yeah, I don't. He definitely isn't conserving fuel right now. Not with cars behind him. I think he definitely needs to keep them behind him, as one of them almost gets into the wall behind him. But yeah, I said it earlier. I'll say it again. I don't really know what his situation is right now. He's certainly not slow. He's in the top 10, which is very well. But he doesn't have the speed to definitely be up there with these top 5 guys right now.
I believe Michael and Dano are probably working the same setup or working together on the racetrack, so maybe Michael just wants to try to draft with him and not mix it up right now.
Yeah, and that actually, they just went a little bit faster these previous couple of laps since he's caught up. They're doing 41.5s, and that's not too far away. He was only 3/100ths of a second, Dano, slower than his fastest lap of the race, a 41.530, which he set a little bit earlier on, as we're now on to lap 115 of 160. Can I start keeping an eye on pit road here? And what Young O's been able to do in these last, I don't know, 5 or 6 laps, Rob, is give himself a cushion on pit road, just in case he comes up amongst some slow traffic on the way into pit road, has to slow it down. He's not going to lose his advantage now. He'll still be able to come out ahead of Matt Cook, unless he really messes up his pit stop. And we're talking about Young O here.
Yeah, he's really precise. I mean, it's always handy to build up a gap, and I just don't know how he does it, because Matt Cook is no slouch. Yang's just super consistent, like inch for inch, millimetre for millimetre on this racetrack. I've actually been watching, the Randy Crosno Miguel battle, and Randy's managed to pull a bit more of a gap himself. He's doing a bit of a Yang-O on Miguel at the moment and pulling away from him. But obviously the Yang's set must just turn into gold once it's, like 15 litres or whatever left. Just seems to have an extra gear. He's got like 7th gear or something.
Yeah, that last lap alone, he was 7/100ths of a second faster than that of Matt Cook. Cook did a 41.307, a 41.233, and there you are, Young O, fastest lap of the race, a 41.167 there for Young O. Actually, I take that back. He's It's his second fastest lap of the race, 2/1000ths of a second slower than his fastest. Matt Cook at a 41.276. That's only 3/100ths slower than his fastest lap of the race. But those 3 or 4 laps before he comes onto pit road, Mitch, he's clearly a 10th of a second faster than anyone, and that's where you make that difference.
Yeah, and he's one of the best when it comes to pitting on his in lap, so at the very least, he'll try to keep the same distance he has on the racetrack, and I wouldn't be surprised if he could extend it a little bit even more.
Goes faster once again, a 41.137, that time by there for Young O. We have got some cars coming onto pit road. We have Dano Brookins on pit road, the first of the cars to blame Tim Dahl on pit road as well. And Tim Dahl comes in early there, which is a little bit surprising for me. Maybe he just took a gallon less just to, help himself get up some traffic. And Randy Crosner and Matt Cook are going to kind of come onto pit road this time by. So it's pit stop time, guys, and both of those drivers going to have to make sure they have a perfect pit stop, as Young O is in as well. Perfectly 55 miles an hour for him, perfectly 55 miles an hour for Matt Cook, and we'll see what Randy Crosno does, as he's currently in the 3rd position, and for Crosno, he is perfectly to 55 miles an hour as well. And as they come past the stripe, a 47.886 for Young O in lap. Matt Cook that time is a 10th of a second slower. Of course, Cook was a 10th of a second faster the last time they did green flag pit stops, as Cook overshoots.
Yep, overshot, slid in.
Yeah, he was trying to do as much as he could to make up any time, but it ended up biting him, so he's going to pay the price.
And he loses, I think, about half a second at least there as they come off of pit road. That gap actually is pretty substantial. And Martin Miller has kind of come back into play here. He's now 2.3 seconds ahead of Matt Cook. And if I'm having a look, actually, Young O is not that far. Very close on the racetrack between Martin Miller and Young O, actually. Just trying to get confirmation where they are. 1.4 second gap between Martin Miller and Young O. And, of course, Martin Miller will be on pit road in about 2 to 3 laps' time. He will be faster than Young O at this stage of the race, and he'll get a little bit of a draft as well. If this race goes green to the end and he saves the fuel, Martin Miller will be very close because of the fact that they'll all have to make an extra pit stop. They'll be back in sequence, but Miller, realistically, it looks as though he'll probably come home in the 2nd position, Mitch.
Yeah, if I were him, I'd be doing everything I can to avoid having to come in again. But he's not in a bad spot. I still think that if we were to get a yellow now, he probably would not want to see that.
A yellow flag for him right now would pretty much put complete end to his race, and also mean that everyone would pretty much be able to go to the end of the race as well. But they carry on, and Young O, he was able to actually gain a full 2 seconds over Matt Cook in that one sequence of pit stops, and that's a lot more than what Cook would have lost on pit road just by overshooting his pit box himself there, Rob.
Yeah, I think Matt got stuck in some traffic on the way out, and it was cost him a little bit more time as well. So it's a bit of an error, well, massive error on Matt's part to slide past his lollipop man and launch his lollipop man into the air. But is it going to cost him his Miller pits from P2?
So Martin Miller is on towards pit road then. He was perfectly down to 55 miles an hour. And his in-lap, actually, let's see what his in-lap was. It was a 48.035. So slower than all of the guys ahead of him. So Miller taking the conservative option there as he comes into his pit box. And I'm having a look. They're all going to have to make one more pit stop. Martin Miller is right on the edge.
We'll have to take a look at his lap times here. See just how much he is trying to save. We'll have a better idea of whether or not he can make it.
I think he needs to save for still about a lap and a half. And realistically, he won't be able to do what, some people can do. You can run out of fuel and not have to make that additional pit stop. Miller will have to save that full lap and a half. If he does that, he will probably fall back to about 8th, 9th position on the racetrack. So now Martin Miller is going to want that caution to kind of bunch his field back together, I think, so he can get back into racing, and he wants to hope that there's probably another 2-3 cautions in this race to give him the chance of having restarts, the chance of being able to get through this traffic, as there's cars very close to him, like cars he's going to work past here as they come past the start finish line once again. Martin Miller now down into the 14th position on the racetrack. He has gained about 3 spots there for that series of pit stops, and he's gained quite a lot of time as well. But still, a lot of work to do there for Martin Miller in that number 6 GlacierTV car. Miguel Martinez has been able to get past Randy Crosno, Rob.
Didn't see that? That's a... Those two have been back. Was that on pit road? Did he get past him on pit road?
I think it was, yeah.
He must have been a better in that because he pitted the lap after everyone. Because he led the race for like 3/4 of a lap before he comes to pit road, so he must have just had a better in lap than Randy, which got him out in front, which is great for Miguel. I think he's proving he can hang with some very, very quick drivers.
Mitch, I don't actually race in the IndyCar series as much as I should do these days, but Martinez, you raced with him recently much?
Never heard of him, Will.
Oh, okay, we'll just move on from that then, shall we? We're going to get a quick stat update on Martinez shortly, actually. But, of course, to be able to run in the top 5 of any World Tour event is incredibly impressive. He did do a lot of racing in the fixed series at Pocono, actually. He does a lot of racing in the fixed series generally. Currently scored 18th in the fixed series championship running in Division 3. A total of 686 points this season. Also runs in the Mazda Cup and the Grand Touring Cup multi-class as well. But the important thing is as well is that Martinez is only 2 seconds behind Tim Doyle right now. And last time by, Martinez was only about half of a tenth of a lap slower. So if Tim Doyle gets caught in traffic or makes a mistake, Martinez could actually be knocking on the door of a podium in this race, Jeremy.
Yeah, he has driven a very smart race, and for someone that I guess we've all never heard of, is making a good name for himself right now. And yeah, you know, the way things are going, it doesn't look like there's going to be a caution. I could be wrong. But gosh, he's done a well of a job, you know, putting himself in the top 5 right now, and that'd be great for him if he could get a podium.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he's just working by himself there on his setup, because it's not easy putting together a setup that can run in a top 5 and on this World Tour event against some of the guys that have many man hours put into their car. So
Crosno's coming back on the inside down into turn number 2. He will sweep past and get himself back up into the 4th position. Martinez falls back down into 5th, and Martinez gave him quite a lot of room actually, which fell him back to about 4 tenths of a second on the racetrack and took a very wide line into turn 2. I think he actually had to lift up the gas a little bit as well to help turn that race car. But Crosno back up into the 4th position on the racetrack, and looks like Crosno has actually started to find a little bit of speed right now.
Yeah, he's found, maybe his noisy pedals got noisier, who knows. But yeah, he's suddenly found, I don't know whether he's just settled down into a rhythm and just decided this is go time. I don't know where that's come from, to be honest. He's just gone, oh, I'm going to go past you and check out. See you later.
But the two of these drivers, when you talk about their consistency, we'll get the graphic up on your screen. You know, their fastest up of the race, they're separated by just 1/100th of a second. That last time by, Martinez lost about a 10th of a second there to Randy Crosno, so he's now 4 tenths of a second back. But let's not forget, Martinez struggled a little bit at the start of these runs, but was very good in the middle portion of it. That's where he really found his time. Still 14 cars scored on the lead lap, a total of 19 cars still classified within the race. Brandon Lichtenberg actually in that 9 car, just away from my screen, he's actually out of the race for the 2nd time in a row. He hit the wall yesterday in the race. I've got a feeling he's done exactly the same thing here today. Yeah, he just hit the wall on the exit of turn number 3. He hit the wall on the exit of turn number 1 in the race yesterday. Brandon Lichtenberg in that broken arrow car. Mitch having a tough weekend.
Yeah, I was racing with him a little bit last night. I think he was able to pass me earlier in the race. But yeah, I'm sure he's got to be disappointed. He had a strong car, probably a top 5 car last night. He probably could have had an easy top 10, maybe top 5 today.
But meanwhile, the Young-O train continues, and this time that gap is going to be up to over 5 seconds on the racetrack. 5 seconds separates Young-O to Matt Cook, and 5 seconds pretty much separates Matt Cook to Tim Doyle. But actually, that last time by, Cook was a little bit faster than Young-O. O's coming into a little bit of traffic right now, and this is where O's got to be careful. He has got that time now, as we've got a car on towards pit road, a little bit late on in the race, and these guys, Tim Doyle, I don't understand this.
Is he spun or something? We missed it.
I don't know, but I mean, surely he's not trying to...
Is he at the wall?
He's not hit the wall on my screen at all. So, maybe he's just saying another alternative strategy there, hoping this race goes green to the end. And actually now, Mitch, because we're at that stage in the race, you'll stay on the lead lap, pretty much guaranteed. Unless, in fact, no, he doesn't. He loses out there to Young-O. He's no longer on the lead lap, and that is critical now for Tim Doyle, because if he was able to stay on the lead lap and a caution came out, then Tim Doyle would pretty much be quids in. He'd be in a shot of winning this race. Now he's fallen a lap down to Young-O. He's got to find a way back past that number 4 car, because otherwise, there's a good chance that he's going to finish probably down in about the 15th position.
Yeah, I think he's trying to split the fuel run in two, basically just run half the distance, come in and pit, run the second half. It might not work out too bad for him if he's able to find a draft and run some fast times with a larger fuel load. But certainly a caution now with him being behind Young would end for a bad day for Tim Doyle.
To give you an update as well on restart rules, it is a single file restart. At this point in time, you will still line up where you were on the racetrack. So what would happen? Tim Doyle will end up being ahead of Young if Young comes onto pit road under a caution, and therefore he will still be able to get back onto the lead lap due to the wave around. However, the last 10 laps of the race, if you are behind the lead lap car, you go to the rear of the field when it goes to 1 to go. At the time being, if there was to be a caution, Tim Doyle will start this race second in line on a restart, which is probably his only saving grace, Rob.
Yeah, it would be. I don't know, but he's playing a risky game. Because it's getting into the business end of the race, obviously, so... is your strategy going to play out? If only time will tell. His cars dive to the pit lane. That was Young-O, wasn't it?
Yeah, Young-O's. Has Young-O come onto pit road? Yes, he has. So Young-O's making his final stop of the day. And we know that Young and Tim, they will do that alternative strategy. All of a sudden, and this possibly was the reason why Young-O's been so fast recently. Because, I mean, if you have a look at his lap times, he was actually, as he overshoots his pit box there as well. So Young-O making his first mistake of the day. And he comes back out onto the racetrack. He has to stay 55 miles an hour. Now he can get going. He will come back out onto the racetrack. That will put Tim Doyle back onto the lead lap. And it will also give Matt Cook the lead for the time being. If there's a caution right now, Matt Cook will still have to come on pit road, Mitch. I think he needs, 2, maybe 3 cautions to get to this race without stopping again. But if you're Matt Cook and a caution does come out now, do you pit or do you stay out and try and risk it?
That's a tough call. I think he'd probably have to pit. He's going to want fresh tires, and he's going to want to be... He can probably pass quite a few cars on the restart, so maybe he can salvage a better finish coming in, fresh tires, pitting, making his way through the field.
So, Matt Cook is your new race leader. He has a 9.1 second gap. And actually, I'm just going to stop my sentence out. I actually just swear I saw Young-O just tag the wall there on the exit of turn 1. He didn't. He was inches away from doing so, however. Matt Cook, 9.2 second gap over Randy Crosno. Miguel Angel Martinez, a further 6 tenths of a second back. James Swinbanks in 4th. Pino in 5th. Tim Mawson in 6th. James Allard 7th. Young-O now is in 8th. Danny Brookins in 9th, and then running at your top 10 is Martin Miller. And actually, Martin Miller, it does see that it's losing out because he's, what, 7 seconds behind Young O, and they've both made the same number of pit stops now. Meanwhile, we've got James Allard and Tim Mawson. They are going at it hammer and tongue on the racetrack. They've pretty much been, you know, their lap times have been within 1/10 of a second of each other, Rob, for pretty much the entire fuel run. And they've also got Young O coming very, very hard behind them. And Mawson and Allard having a great battle.
If this was multi-class racing right now, Young O would be flashing those headlights. Ding, ding, ding. Look out, boys, I'm coming through. But no, these boys have been racing hard all race, to be fair. They've been having a proper scrap. Some great racing, some good moves, but really fair as well. They're making sure they're not making daft moves where they can risk each other sort of having an accident. They've been battling hard, but fair, and it's awesome to watch, really.
So we are closing in on 20 laps left to go in this race, and it's still anyone's race to play for now. The issue is, of course, Young O, if he gets held up for long enough behind these drivers, then there is a chance that he could lose a little bit of time, but nowhere near enough time, surely, for Matt Cook to...
As Allard makes the move.
And they're going, yeah, 2 wide ahead of him! And, oh, this is what you were talking about earlier, Mitch, with Tim Doyle, is that you do these risky strategies, but then you've got to find a way through the traffic who are engaging in their own battles.
2 wide round turn 2.
Yeah, it's not something I like to put I don't like to put myself in that situation. You never know what's going to happen when you get behind other drivers on the track. You just want to go out there, run your line, not have to worry about anything. Once you start putting yourself behind other cars, and I mean, obviously you're opening yourself up to a lot of negative consequences.
James Swinbanks, let's check in on him. He's now running in the 4th position on the racetrack. Scored 12 seconds behind your race leader. He's had to kind of come through the field pretty dramatically. And
here come the pit stops, I think.
Yeah, I think that Matt Cook might be pitting this time by. We'll keep an eye out on that. In fact, Martin Miller will come onto pit road as well. So they're all going to come in, and Miguel Angel Martinez is on pit road.
Yeah, I'm just watching Matt Cook as he comes round turn 2. Is he going to... is that turn 2?
Yeah, that is turn 2.
It was turn 2.
There's no turn 4 at this racetrack, remember that.
Yeah, I know
he's
that.
coming through turn 3, and he stays out.
He stays out.
So,
interesting.
Let's have a look. So I'm intrigued about Martin Miller, because someone told me that he might be coming onto pit road to make a splash. I say, I still think that Miller's got to stay out and hope for a caution to have his strategy work out for him. But right now, it is 3 Aero X Racing drivers running 1, 2, and 3. Matt Cook from Randy Crosney from James Swinbanks. Jao Pino 4th, and Miguel Angel Martinez round out the top 5. Surely not, because he's made a pit stop. But we'll come back to that at some point soon anyway. In fact, no, it's all sorted itself out. Young O is now packed up into the 5th position. Tim Mawson in 6th. James Allard in 7th. And then Martin Miller now up into the 8th position as Cook stays out. But, I mean, realistically, Cook won't come onto pit road until, what, 8 laps to go? Mitch?
Yeah, it looks like, yeah, he's not going to be able to make it from here. Really, there's kind of interesting. Everybody's a little bit on a different strategy, so I'm having a hard time keeping up with what everybody's doing here. Yellow flags are just going to make it that much more complicated. So it's going to be really interesting to see towards the end of the race how this all comes out to play.
I mean, Will, Matt has 27 seconds over Yang O. When he was getting held up in traffic, wouldn't it have been better to do his splash then? Do you know what I mean? To keep the gap somewhere reasonable while he's behind other cars, and then go like I come from endurance racing, so I would do that. You know.
Yes, in some ways, but the thing is, of course, that he might actually have done what Mitch was saying earlier, just actually split that fuel tank in half, although the lap times weren't anything really to go and call home about. Even though I did notice actually in the race yesterday that if you take tyres and put half a tank of fuel in it, then you're not actually as fast as if you're just running at the end of a tank anyway. So the tyres, they have to heat up, they have to get up to their optimal temperature. And that's going to be the thing for Matt Cook, in my opinion. I don't think he should take tyres on this last pit stop. And I think he's probably just outside the window to get away taking tyres for free. With 8 laps, he'll only be on his pit road for about 4, maybe 5 seconds, and a tyre change takes about 6.5 seconds. So Matt Cook probably won't take tyres, neither will Cosno, neither will Swimbanks. However, we still have a total of 11 cars on the lead lap. The last of them is Tim Doyle. However, he is in moderate danger of going down a lap once again.
Yeah, it seems so. He's not too far down the track from Matt Cook, who's flying. I mean, it's one car ahead. Is it one car or two? Sorry, I'm in blimp cam because I find it easier. No, yeah, he's one car. He's got one car between him and Matt Cook, so not too far up the road, which can't be good for his strategy.
And last time by, Matt Cook did himself a 41.421. Tim Doyle a 41.579. Tim Doyle has got a draft to Michael Chin ahead of him. Daniel Kendall behind him as well. So Cook probably won't be able to put a lap on Tim Doyle before this caution comes out. But I think that for Cook, he's going to have to put the hammer down because he's still not doing the times that he needs to be doing if he's going to beat Young O in this race. He comes past the straight once again, 41.387. Let's have a look at Martin Miller's times, actually. It's 41.467 for him. It does look as though he's trying to save a little bit of fuel right now because his lap times are consistently about a 1/10 of a second slower right now, Mitch, compared to what they were earlier on in this race.
If he's saving fuel, he's still faster than me running my lap as hard as I can, so he's doing a pretty good job of it.
I think if you're Matt Cook, you got to come in this time. Otherwise, these lap cars are going to hold him up, and they're going to destroy any chance he has of winning.
He's already going to be in that situation right now. Daniel Kendall's going out of the way. He's got one car ahead of him. I think this is Michael Chin, actually. Those two get on pretty well, but Cook is losing time. He's going to have to go down to the inside. He's losing a lot more time. And now he's got Tim Doyle ahead of him. He's been able to get past. That will cost him about 1/4 of a second on the racetrack, however. And that's just what you think. And that's a whole endurance mind of thinking once again, Rob, that you've got to be able to, you know, have that confidence. Just say immediately, I'm coming in this lap. I can't deal with that traffic.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I've forgotten who said he should come in. Perfect. I would have done exactly that. I would have been like, hang on a minute. This is a bit too risky, as it proved. I don't know what
4 tenths of a second, 1 lap.
Yeah, Michael Chin did, but it looked like he lifted a little bit, which caught Matt Cook unawares, and then lost him in the mirror, and he wasn't sure where he was going. So, you know, that's Andy would lose momentum as well, so it's going to affect him on the next lap, not only that one. So, that could have cost him the race just there.
It could have indeed, and I tell you what, 4 tenths of a second. Young O still is 27 seconds back. So if it was, they all had to make one more stop, the top 4 drivers, O would still win this race, and actually probably by a bit of a bigger margin. Young O last time by 41.266. He's lapping 1/10 of a second constantly faster than Matt Cook at this stage of the race. Cook has got now Tim Doyle just ahead of him, and that's being able to help Matt Cook improve his lap times a little bit. Cook is going to look down to the inside of Tim Doyle as they work side by side down into turn number 2. This will put Tim Doyle off of the lead lap for the time being. Of course, if the caution was to come out now and Matt Cook stays out, that would pin Tim Doyle 1 lap down, but Cook doesn't have the fuel to be able to go to the end on our books as far as we are concerned. So still a lot to play for into the last 10 laps of the iRacing.com Pocono 400 presented by GlacierTV. Wil Vincent still with Rob Cost, Mitch McCracken and Jeremy Lacosta as we're now into those last 10 laps. 9 laps left to go, so they storm down into turn number 1 once again. Crosno in second position, Swimbanks in third. Crosno's had a good recovery drive, as has James Swimbanks, Mitch.
Yeah, James is one of those guys that I wasn't expecting to be up here towards the end. Yeah, I think he has a good car. Certainly make the most of the equipment that was given to him or that he worked on. So certainly has a good is having a good drive, and he has to be proud of where he is.
And then Xiao Pinner as well. I mean, Xiao wasn't part of one of these, we call them mega teams, but still, that 15 car, being part of the IndyCar community for a very long time now, scored in that 4th position. Realistically, he'll probably come home in 5th, maybe 6th position on the racetrack. He's done a stunning job there for that 15 car.
It seems like you're talking to yourself again, Will.
Or whatever. It's 8 laps left to go, and I think this is a lap that Matt Cook might come on towards pit road. We'll get confirmation, of course, as soon as he does come. He's ready to pull out a little bit of time over Tim Doyle. Tim Mawson's just been involved in a little bit of an incident, actually. But Matt Cook stays out for one more lap. Surely he has to come on pit road in the next couple of laps. If they've been able to go this far, then actually Martin Miller should be able to just about get to the end of the race. You know, especially if Matt Cook does one more lap under green, then pretty much Martin Miller might be just about good to go. Randy Crosney will be coming onto pit road this time. James Swinbanks will be coming onto pit road this time by. We haven't heard anything yet from Matt Cook, but we'll keep an eye out on him in that number 2 car to see whether he makes that journey down towards pit road. The critical pit stop of the race. Let's not forget, this is how John Porzak lost the Indy 500 in his eyes a little bit early on this year because he messed up that final pit stop. Randy Crosno, is he coming onto pit road? We think he is. And let's have a look. He's slowing down, so he's going to make that journey on towards pit road. 55 miles an hour for Randy Crosno.
Swinbanks
slowing it down.
In.
Swinbanks comes onto pit road as well. Both down to 55 miles an hour, no issue. Xiao Pinot comes onto pit road as well. This moves Zheng back up into the 2nd position on the racetrack. Matt Cook working himself through turn number 2. He will be coming on towards pit road at the conclusion of 155 laps in this race. And Zheng will go back to the point.
Swinbanks misses pit box again, too far forward.
The important thing is, though, if there is a caution from this point in, it will not finish under green. And we have never had a World Tour broadcasted event in an IndyCar which is finished under caution. Every single one has always finished under green. We're going to keep an eye out on Matt Cook. He comes onto his pit box. He will only have to take about 2 gallons worth of fuel.
Here comes Yang down the main straightaway.
Young O is back to the race lead in this race. Matt Cook is still in his pit box. He is waiting. And actually, what's happened to Matt Cook? This is an incredibly long pit stop. He
hit pit entry at about over 70 miles an hour, so he was way too hot coming in.
So Matt Cook, and caution is out, and this is the worst thing that could have happened to Matt Cook this race. And with caution, it was the yellow car. I believe actually that was Michael Chin. We'll get confirmation of that in a moment. But Michael Chin, I believe, actually lost his car, and this was in turn number 2. He touched the curb and slammed it into the wall there. Lost all steering. Car speared upside down into the wall. Game over for him. And I'm not sure. This could be a 1. No, surely not. This is going to probably finish under caution.
And look who's in the P2
maybe
spot.
A 1
Martin Miller.
Out.
And Miller's in the P2 spot, I think.
Yeah, and that was the perfect thing for Martin Miller. I think, and I say this very clear, I think we have a 1-lap shootout.
That would be awesome.
I think there will be a 1-lap shootout. I'm not entirely sure. The race yesterday had a 2-lap shootout to complete the race. It would possibly be a 1-lap shootout here today. Difficult moment, however, for Matt Cook having to serve that penalty. In some ways, actually, he was lucky the fact that that happened under the caution flag came out, Mitch, because otherwise he could have lost out probably another 3 or 4 positions.
Yeah, I don't know where it's going to put him out on the racetrack now, but
P5, I think.
Okay, so yeah, he's certainly was a saving grace for him there. He definitely caught a little bit of luck.
So, it's going to be Team Nap Racing, Young-O, 1st position. Martin Miller, 2nd. Tim Doyle, 3rd. Randy Cosno, 4th. Matt Cook in the 5th position. Swinbanks in 6th. Martinez, 7th. McEntee in 8th. Alliard in 9th. And then Sergey Ivanov rounds out your top 10. And we are going to have to figure out whether the 2 to go comes out this time. If the 2 to go comes out, then we are going to have a one-lap shootout. If the 2-0 doesn't come out this time by, then we are going to finish this race under caution. I'm
sorry, Will. Expect Tim, Doyle, and Young to work the start of the race here to try to get Tim past Martin.
I was exactly just about to say that. And Martin Miller is a wise old fox. And 2 laps left to go. Jeremy, say something for a moment.
Gonna be a great finish.
It should be entertaining, that's for sure.
I'm really excited for this restart. I'm pretty sure Young will probably get the jump. You have to believe though, Martin Miller or Matt Cook, who's actually up to 3rd, they're gonna try and time this perfectly.
Of course, Matt Cook. And this is what happened. The field freezes at the exact time that the caution flag comes out. Therefore, Matt Cook was on pit road. I'll have to check the rule book on this, but I think that Matt Cook actually locked out tremendously there. Because of the fact he was on pit road, he was serving his penalty, and then all he needs to do is literally just drive 100 feet forward, and it doesn't matter if the guys are going 200 miles an hour behind him. As soon as he got to that exit commitment cone, he was able to just, you know, cruise around. Martin Miller has locked out big time in this race. He's back up into the 2nd position. Matt Cook in 3rd. Randy Crossley in 4th. Tim Doyle rounds out your top 5. All of the cars who have scored laps down will now be sent to the rear of the field once the lights go out on the pace car and we go 1 to go. That will be Daniel Kendall, Herman Flander, Dano Brookins will all go behind the cars scored 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th on the racetrack. We have a total of 12 cars scored on the lead lap. And Dano Brookins, the first car, scored 1 lap down. Mark Shuley also scored 1 lap down. Daniel Kendall, Michael Chin, Herman Flander all scored 2 laps down in this race. The important question is, can Cook and Miller find any way of getting past Young-O in this 1 lap shootout? Can Young-O actually crack under pressure?
I don't know if Young-O will crack, but I think Miller really needs to lay back on this and try to get a huge jump. And he almost needs to risk, if he wants to win, he almost needs to risk getting a penalty, I think.
Definitely needs to do that, exactly that, hang back and have a real run.
So, we've had a 1 lap shootout in the iRacing.com Talladega 500. We've had a 1 lap shootout in the iRacing.com Daytona 500. We're now going to have a 1 lap shootout on the iRacing.com Pocono 400 presented by GlacierTV. Young-O is your race leader as they work themselves the lights are off on the pace car through turn number 1. Martin Miller 2nd, Matt Cook 3rd, Randy Crossley 4th, and then Tim Doyle rounds out your top 5. So it is Team Nap Racing from Banshee Autosport, from AeroX, from Team Nap Racing.
Young-O is really laying back from the pace car. I think he may even try to get a jump before the pace car even gets off the track.
It's going to be, I tell you what, this could be incredibly entertaining last lap to watch. If there is a crash at the rear of the field, the caution will immediately come back out. It's a single file restart, so normally that makes things a lot cleaner for a restart at Pocono. And clearly, with the amount of cars that we still have running in this race, if they can get off track, it should be okay. But Young-O, he needs to time his start perfectly. Martin Miller, he needs to time his start perfectly. In fact, if you have a look at Martin Miller right now in that number 6 car, he is right on the tail of Young-O. Matt Cook, he's a dark horse in this, I think. He might just try and blitz down the outside of everyone.
I know if I was up there, I'd be hugging the wall to make sure nobody can get by me on the right side.
Indeed, and I tell you what, that pace car is going to come onto pit road for the final time in this race. 1 lap shootout at Pocono. Here we go. Look at that
Young-O's got it now.
There. He will get that job done. White flag in hand. 1 more lap to go. They storm it down into turn number 1. oh surely has got the momentum he needs for the time being. Martin Miller got bolted a little bit at the start. Of course, he can go whenever he wants to. Martin Miller just jumped it a tiny little bit. He clips the curbs. They come out of turn number 1. He is trying everything in his power to close up to the rear of Young O as they storm it down into turn number 2. Once again, less than half a lap left to go in this race as they come down into that shortest straightaway of the 3, down into turn number 3 for the final time in this race. Young O gonna bring it out of turn number 3. He's won the iRacing.com Indianapolis 500. Now he wins the iRacing.com Pocono 400. Young O is the winner, and Miller comes home second. Matt Cook in third. Randy Crosney fourth. Tim Dahl rounds out your top 5.
And Young O really deserved that. He was class of the field all day. Nobody could hang with him.
Yeah, I agree. That was my driver of the day. But I'll tell you what, Martin Miller, he was pretty close to the driver of the day as well. I know he lucked out with his strategy a little bit, but finished second from being last on the lead lap with, what, 15, 16 to go or something.
I think that with the restart there, of course, Youngo can go at any point where he wants, Mitch. But also, you've got a very small window where you can do that at Pocono. From the time the pace car comes in to the time those lights go green, the flagman waves that flag, it's probably only about 2 to 3 seconds. And it means that you have a very narrow margin in these situations to try and get that jump. O timed it perfectly. I was surprised, actually, that Matt Cook didn't try and stick his car on the outside of Martin Miller to be almost the kind of backup in case Miller did mess it up.
Yeah, I'm sure Young was watching the pace card. He was ready to gun, and as soon as he saw it dart to the left, he said it was time to go.
So, 2 hours, 13 minutes then. Youngo is the victor in the iRacing.com Pocono 400, presented by GlacierTV. Martin Miller second, Matt Cook third, Randy Cosno fourth, Tim Dahl rounds out your top 5. James Swinbanks in 6th, Miguel Angel Martinez in the 7th position, Tim Mawson in 8th, James Allard in 9th, and Xiao Pino rounds out your top 10. Sergio Ivanov in 11th, the last car scored on the lead lap. Brian McEntee in the 12th position, Dano Brookins 13th, Mark Shawley 14th, Daniel Kendall in 15th, Kerman Fander in 16th, Michael Chin 17th, Jacob Schneider 18th, Flora Costo in 19th, Brandon Lichtenberg rounds out your top 20. The rest of the results coming up on your screen momentarily. We all know who the driver of the race is. One of the things that intrigues me, though, is the fact that once again at Pocono, it has been incredibly clean racing. And you're going to be the one that's going to work with me on this one, Mitch, because, you know, we have 60-lap races at Pocono with 7-8 cautions. We've had 2 races, you know, here today. The race yesterday had a total of 6 cautions. One of them was a phantom caution in many ways. Today, what, was it 6 cautions again? 5 cautions?
Yeah, an incredibly low number, which is pretty impressive considering the speeds these cars are going around the track. Goes to show just how good these Indy cars, just how good of a show these Indy cars can put on.
And the word that I think we can take out of this is respect. And these guys have been incredibly respectful once again. And, you know, arguably you could say that you know, if you're going to go by strength of field or iRatings, yes, there has been probably a lower iRating than we saw at Indy. However, the respect level we have seen these past 2 races has been absolutely astonishing. Like to welcome in the guy who's won pretty much there is everything to win in the IndyCar now. He's won the Indy 500. He's won the iRacing IndyCar Premier Series. He's won the iRacing Official Series. And now he's won the inaugural iRacing Pocono 400. How's it feel, Young, to add that to your books?
It feels tiring. I was asleep half of the race. Second half, it's my bedtime, so it wasn't easy to try to stay awake.
I talked to you a couple of weeks ago, and you were actually debating whether you're even going to run this race. I know you've had a couple of issues with the way the car's been handling recently, draft models, etc. You're the only driver that actually got into the sub 41.1s in qualifying, setting a 41.097. Was that, you know, the perfect qualifying for you?
No, I had a couple of hundreds to spare, I think, but it was definitely tight between me and Matt, especially, and all the Banshee guys. Those guys did a fantastic job. getting a setup together. That's Matt's been pushing me almost the whole race. Whenever he was in my draft, he wasn't even going anywhere. He was closing, and yeah, I think the turbulence kind of kept it even. If he was within 2/10 of me, then he would drop back a little bit in turn 3 because of that. But other than that, we were definitely pretty even.
And you talk about, you know, Cook, Miller, especially, you know, being in that race with you. Tim Doyle was there for some points as well. And over the course of the race, it did seem to be that the first 5 laps or so, Matt Cook, especially after the restart, Matt Cook was a little bit faster. Then you pretty much equal for another 10, maybe 15 laps. The last third of a run, however, you just seemed to drive away. Was that the point that you could actually just run that entire lap flat out?
You have to lift a little bit. It's not like before. Like you said, I had some issues. I have a lot of issues with this tire actually. With the old tire model, you must hang on to the car every single corner. Well, except for turn 2, obviously, but it's such a challenge that one mistake, one little slide, and you could end up in the wall. And now you just have to make sure you don't push off the corner into the wall, because there's no way you're gonna spin. The car is that much stable now. I just enjoy the challenge a little bit more.
And pit stop wise, you made a tiny little incident on pit road once, where you overshot your pit box a little bit. I don't think there's really been any other issues apart from that, but you seem to be running it incredibly close to the wall, especially coming out of turn number 1. Now, I've talked to Matt Cook about this, and there's that little hill that you can gain probably an extra half a mile an hour if you go over. But at any point, how close were you actually hitting that wall during the race?
I was just glad I didn't hit it hard enough. I think I scraped it just barely a couple of times, maybe 10 times, but it wasn't enough to do any damage at all. At some point, I think in the last end, I tried to push really hard around qualifying laps because of my strategy. I pitted early and then overshot my pit stall, a little bit pressure there. So I had to run the last stint really hard, but sometimes slower is faster. I ran my best laps in the middle of the stint where I was just relaxing, cruising.
And of course, now you've won once again pretty much everything there is to run in the IndyCar. What's next for you?
I want to try to help my teammate Tim Doyle win the fixed championship on Monday. I'll see what I can do to make the strength of field go up a little bit. So that's I'm not sure what's next. Maybe just take a break from sim racing for a while at least. So yeah, that's my plan for now. I don't know what I'm doing after that.
No worries. Congratulations on winning the inaugural iRacing.com Pocono 400. Gonna have a chat with my good friend Randy Crosno now. Mr. Randy Crosno, you didn't crash out of the race. You came home in the 4th position, but it looked as though that you struggled a little bit. I asked you a little bit earlier on whether you glanced the wall at all. Was there actually any damage to that number 7 Aero X racing car?
Yeah, I think I had a little bit of a front right toe adjustment, but just a tiny bit. But I tell you, the real motivation for me to finish the race was so I didn't have to come in and broadcast with you.
How dare you?
Yeah, that's rude, man.
Hey, Randy, were you disappointed that you couldn't broadcast with us?
Oh, extremely. And I reek with sarcasm there.
Yeah.
That was a fun race. You know, great crowd to race with. Very respectful the whole way. I think we only had, 5 cautions? It was a fun race. Really enjoyed it.
And, yeah, 5 cautions. I mean, that beats what we actually had yesterday, which had, 6 cautions. So, you know, when you consider the fact that this is the toughest super speedway that we have in IndyCar, and when you consider the fact that we sometimes do 60-lap races here with more than 5 cautions, really, these guys have been on top form all weekend long. And you have a look at the race yesterday, you have a look at the race today. Of course, you were taken out in a slightly unfortunate incident with Pierre Bondon yesterday. But again, here today, you know, it's been good, clean racing up and down the field.
Oh, huge. I mean, I I had a battle with Miguel for a long time throughout the whole race. It seems like we'd find each other. And also Yao, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Joao, I believe.
I'm saying Yao.
Yeah, okay. A couple battles with those guys. That was a lot of fun. There was some good give and take. Like I said, it was just a lot of fun. It was good, clean racing. I couldn't do this every week, I got to be honest with you, though.
Yes, you can, and you know you can.
I'm an old man, remember? You keep reminding me of it.
I do, but coming home in the 4th position, making up for what happened to you yesterday?
Oh, huge. Yes, I'm extremely thrilled. It was unfortunate. Pierre apologized. You know, Mitch and I were battling, and you know, he said he was going to stay up high for us. And he, you know, sometimes when a lapper tries to stay up high with a little bit of damage, he just kind of lost control, came down and took me out. But you know, it was not on purpose. It was an accident, so it's all good.
So congratulations on that 4th place finish. And Matt Cook, you won yesterday. You beat Martin Miller. Today Martin Miller beats you, but neither of you could get to that guy called Young-O.
Young-O is definitely a hell of a lot faster than we are on average. He's extremely consistent, and he hit all his marks every time. No matter what, the only chance that I had of staying on his bumper was to remain in his draft from the very start of a restart.
And you did that on a couple of occasions, and at one point you were able to stick with him for about 15, 16 laps of a run. It did seem to be that last, 15 laps of a fuel run, he could really just stretch his legs quite a bit. Was that the dirty air that was hurting you as that fuel went down and you weren't able to put the fast laps in, or was it just the fact that it just wasn't the raw pace there?
Well, it was new territory for me. I hadn't been exactly at that extreme pace before, especially running behind someone. So I really had to adjust myself to the corners and really get myself down on trying to figure out the timing when I can actually get back on the throttle. So, I mean, like, it was a really interesting experience overall, and I'm really happy that it worked out that way, actually.
And overall, it's been an incredibly enjoyable race. And overall, you've come home essentially with a win and a 3rd place finish. I think that kind of officially now welcomes you into the IndyCar series.
Yes, it's been a great experience so far. I'm really enjoying running it. I'm trying to gain as much experience running with some of the upper guys as best as I can. I feel that I've kind of found my place, although I still want to practice a few things more, especially pit stops, as you saw today. So, these are all things that I need to work on in the future.
Well, congratulations, 2 podium finishes here in 2 races in the iRacing.com Pocono 400. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for now. A truly great race once again in the iRacing World Tour. Don't forget, we still have 2 races left to bring you in the 2013 iRacing World Tour. The first of them on Saturday the 19th of October 2013. Start time, as always, will be at 6 p.m. GMT for the iRacing.com Talladega 500. In which case, actually, we'll be joined by our good friend Tim Terry. So, 188 laps around Talladega for pretty much lots of tandem racing, lots of pack racing, and everything in between. And then we conclude our World Tour coverage this year on the 23rd of November with the iRacing.com Grand Prix of Brazil. Same time, same place. Also, GlacierTV, the home of the 2013 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, every 2 weeks until the end of the season at Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. We'll be with you from 2 p.m. GMT. Before that, an hour beforehand, the newly launched F1 show as well. IndyCar Weekly every Friday night from 7 p.m. Eastern, that's 6 Central. And also the ISOWC IndyCar Series. Still a number of races to come your way this season, including the 3rd running of the ISOWC Indianapolis 500, which is always a truly fun race to watch. So make sure you keep an eye out on Glacier TV for that. From myself, Wil Vincent, from Jeremy DeCosca, from Rob Cuss, and Mitch McCracken, and Jarno Matikainen. See you all next time. Bye-bye.
Fans. famous words in motorsports. Drivers, start your engines!
Michael Conti comes up at a corner number 4 in the checkered flag. He wins his first